Let's go, folks.
Oh my God!
A goal to go from the two. Toss sweep one for James White. Cuts it up to the right arm. Cuts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown and a title for the Patriots.
I can't believe it!
Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down.
Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hitting to right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Poppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything's possible!
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kicking It with Kruse. As always, my name is Ben Kruse, your host for the program for every show of mine. Hopefully, you're all having a great evening, a good week so far, and obviously, it's been a while since I've been on here to do a show myself, so I'm glad to be back. My personal self, I was on a little weekend vacay last weekend, much needed, but obviously missed you guys as well too. So, got a lot into want to talk about for our program for tonight. I plan to have my fellow co-hosts as usual, Isaiah Leon and James Gonzalez, in just a little bit. But before we get started, just want to let you guys know that make sure to follow all of our stuff on the IM6 network, stuff on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We obviously have many other shows outside of the Kicking It with Kruse show. So take a look at. We just started the Extra Point a couple days ago with Laura, Isaiah. I unfortunately wasn't able to join that one, but I will be going to do that show as well, joining them throughout the football season. Batter Up, obviously, we're going to be having some shows of that. Sports Weekly during the week. So if you guys obviously want to know more about those shows or want to tune in, feel free to let me know. Love to obviously have your support for our overall channels. And another thing too, guys, is just want to make sure that you guys have just a great weekend ahead. Obviously, with some nice weather, at least for myself, my area. We're obviously getting to that point in time where summer's, almost done, and obviously August is starting, which means that trying to finish at least summer off great. I know for myself personally, I always say Labor Day weekend is usually the end of summer. So, hopefully you guys are just enjoying summer as of right now, and hopefully you guys, like I said, have a great weekend. The topics for tonight on my show will be as follows. We're going to get through the MLB trade deadline. Of course, there's a ton that happened, the trade deadline stuff in terms of some big moves, a couple big name pitchers went out west. We'll talk about specifically who those are going to be. We're going to obviously talk about some training camp stuff. I actually was fortunate enough this past weekend to go to Patriots training camp on Sunday, which was a ton of fun. I'll obviously talk about how I felt about the team going to that overall day and kind of overall thoughts about it. We'll also get into James's team, Isaiah's team, as well, kind of in terms of how they kind of feel about their teams for football season. We'll also kind of get into our predictions, kind of early division winners, and obviously so forth. We'll also get into a little bit of college football stuff, which I really don't talk much about on the program, but Isaiah requested to have it talked about tonight. So I'll be gladly enough to talk about that as well. And if there's some other stuff as well, we will make sure to get into that as well. But like I said, sit back, guys, relax, and enjoy tonight's program, as it looks like we have our first guest on for our show, as usual, James Gonzalez. James, I know it's been a little while since we've had a show, my friend, but it's glad to be back. How are you doing for tonight?
I'm good. I'm trying to stay warm. I'm wondering where Isaiah is. I thought he'd be in by now.
Well, he sent me a message off the air that he is coming back from somewhere. We'll see specifically where that could possibly be. So we'll
Smart.
see about that. James, I know that obviously we obviously haven't done a show in a while, but it's glad to be back on. We'll talk about the MLB trade deadline. Obviously, we'll kind of do some recap specific on that because I really didn't get the chance to really talk to you and Isaiah much about those moves. We'll also talk about some football stuff, specifically both in NFL and in college. Obviously, our first time talking a bunch of college stuff. So we're going to have a lot of fun tonight, my friend, as usual, to talk some stuff on Kicking It with Kruse. And so the first thing we'll talk about, James, before Isaiah gets in for tonight is we're going to go to our MLB segment as usual. And obviously, we'll kind of start as kind of usual with our team recaps. Obviously, your Angels, I believe, are playing right now as we speak. I'm not sure specifically on that score. Obviously, you can check right now. They are currently down 8-7 in the top of the eighth against the Mariners, which is actually going to be a really big series this weekend for you guys, as you guys are trying to get into one of those wild card spots along with us and the Yankees. So it's going to be an absolute tight race. Can't wait to see in terms of what happens there. But obviously, James, kind of the big news was Shohei Ohtani, in terms of for your Angels, stayed pat. Wasn't really much of a surprise there. And instead of you guys selling for a change, you guys actually were buyers for this year, as you guys ended up acquiring Lucas Giolito. You guys also got CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk, and a separate deal, which, by the way, those two guys are former Angels, as you're probably already aware about that as well. So obviously you guys bought in terms of those moves specifically. Guess, James, just how you feel about those moves, and how do you feel, at least so far, those moves have kind of already paid off for your team, and kind of how do you feel about your Angels kind of since the deadline has finished here?
I think the problem is with these moves is that they're done just for this season. Honestly, a lot of the players are, just rentals, and then the Angels probably gave up a lot when you think about it. The second-ranked, third-ranked, and the ninth-ranked prospects in the system. So a catcher, pitcher, and a shortstop. It was almost too much to give up for Giolito, but the Angels really needed a starter. They really actually need like three other starters to replace the ones that are bad, honestly. The ones with Moose, and he's already been the leader, not being there that long, since June, I think it was. He's already been a leader, unlike Trout. Ohtani can't really say much or do much, of course, but you would think somebody else would be a leader. But Moose, the guy who's only been there that much time, has been that guy. Giolito, he is a guy that can give up so many home runs, and that was one worrisome thing I had when they got him. When I was reading his numbers, great strikeout numbers and all that, but he gives up a ton of home runs, and he did already the first two starts. Looking at Grichuk, he's a free swinger, and that's hurt the Angels. And then Cron, there's a reason why he wasn't an Angel, and then he went other places. I hate the fact that he's kind of a free swinger as well. There is power there, but mostly strikeouts. So it seems like, okay, these moves were made out of desperation, but they were made to show maybe that Ohtani can stay. Like, we'll treat almost the whole farm for you to keep you there. So that was my thoughts about the trades for my team on the deadline.
Yeah, and obviously since the deadline, the Angels right now currently stick at 56 and 54, so they're 2 games over. Obviously, depending on terms of what happens tonight. We actually seem to have Isaiah Leon onto the channel. Isaiah, it's been a while since I talked to you last, my friend. I know that last weekend I was on my little mini vacay, which, by the way, was absolutely fantastic. But I'm glad to be with you guys, and obviously kind of get back into the swing of things as well, too. So, Isaiah, how are we doing tonight, my friend?
Hey, James and Ben, what's going on, guys? You're right. It's been a long time, man. We had a lot of sports that have happened. We had football back yesterday, which I was so excited about. It's been 6 long months, and then we had all the stuff that went down today in college sports, and now college sports is going to look drastically different in a couple of years. So that's going to be new, but. The good news is, I don't have COVID anymore. I'm not stuck in my own home.
Awesome.
Yes, I'm not stuck in my own room, toiling away, doing nothing. I'm actually back to being sane and back to doing whatever I want. So yeah, life is good, man. And I can't wait for the preseason games starting next week. I might go to Seattle for the Seahawks Vikings game. I'm thinking about it, so we'll see if that ends up happening. But yeah, man, like good times in sports right now, and we got a couple more weeks before the college football season begins, so that's very exciting as well.
Absolutely. And Isaiah, another thing too, before we continue, was Extra Point debuted a couple days ago. Obviously, unfortunately enough, myself, I wasn't able to attend, but we also have that show kind of back up and running, which is very exciting for this coming season. So I'm glad enough to be back on there for another one as well. And Batter Up should be probably coming back as well too, as well as Sports Week as the usual shows as well too. So it's glad enough, obviously, to have you back on, Isaiah. But Isaiah, we're currently just in our team reports, kind of as we started here. Obviously, James kind of got into his Angels really quick. Isaiah, obviously, with your Phillies, I know we're going to get into some more in depth about the MLB trade deadline because I never really got the chance to talk more with you guys about that. But of course, the Phillies got some pitching. A guy that specifically the Red Sox are looking at, Michael Lorenzen, to kind of bolster that that starting rotation. And then I'm not really sure kind of what else they kind of did as well. The Oakland A's, they had kind of some minor moves. I know that they moved on from Jace Peterson to the Diamondbacks, but they kept Brent Rooker, which is kind of a little surprising specifically. Obviously, Ramon Laureano sticked around. So really quickly, Isaiah, kind of overall thoughts about the A's and the Phillies right now. I know the Phillies just lost tonight to the Kansas City Royals, who, by the way, are actually on a 7-game winning streak. So they are playing better baseball as of late, despite their overall record. But and then the A's, let's see who the A's had tonight. It doesn't seem like they maybe play, which is weird on a Friday. You would think that they play on a Friday. But the Phillies, obviously, as of right now, they're in second place. They're 12.5 back second to Atlanta, who, by the way, just feels like they're just running away with it unless something, catastrophically happens by this point in time till now. But the Phillies are only 1 game back of that number 1 wild card. So they're pretty much right there within it. And of course, the A's are kind of where they are right now. So just overall thoughts on both your teams at this moment.
For the Phillies, what a surprise, right? They play great against the good teams like the Marlins. They take 3 out of 4 from the Marlins in Miami, and then immediately the next day you expect them to keep the momentum going and to beat up on some of these teams that they are supposed to beat up, like the Royals, the Nationals, and some of these teams that just aren't really that good. And then the first game against the Royals, they just lose 7-5 against Kansas City. In a game which they had the lead, I think 3 times in that game, and each time they just blew lead after lead after lead. So it was very tough to watch tonight's game. Aaron Nola's struggles continued. He gave up 5 runs, 8 hits in 5 1/3 innings pitched. He gave up, I think, like 2 or 3 home runs in this game, continuing his struggles with giving up the long ball. And then guys like Yunar Marte and Jeff Hoffman, who came in relief, gave up 1 run each. But those guys, they're like in the bottom of the bullpen for a reason. They're not really that good. They're guys that are typically in the game when the game is pretty much over or the Phillies are down big. That's when they come in. And I don't know why Rob Thompson didn't put in, especially when it was like, I believe it was 6-5 at that point, why he chose to put in Marte over guys like Gregory Soto or Alvarado or Dominguez, like some of 2 or 3 of the Phillies' best relief pitchers. It just continues Rob Thompson's like weird, bullpen decision making. Sometimes you expect him like to go with some of the guys in the back end of your bullpen, and then he pulls something out of his hat and decides to put in like Jeff Hoffman or Marte. And then you're like, why? Like, I remember against the Marlins a couple of days ago when the Phillies were up 5-4 going into the ninth inning. And, Ben and James, you guys all know that when you're up by a run and your closer hadn't pitched in a couple of days and it's the ninth inning, what do? You put in your closer. That's like the thing that everybody does, right? I don't know why, but Rob Thompson decides to put in Gregory Soto and pitches Craig Kimbrell in the 10th inning. It just made no sense. And then Soto blew it, and obviously it went to extras, and then Kimbrell blew it in the 10th inning. But, I mean, the Phillies have been doing pretty well as of late, besides tonight's loss. They took 3 out of 4 from the Marlins. Before that, they lost 2 out of 3, however, to the Pirates. But they're just beating the good teams that they're not supposed to beat, but they're losing to teams that they're supposed to beat. So I really want to see them start beating these teams like the Royals, the Nationals, and the Pirates, because you have to eat up on some of these games. Because if you don't, then these are going to be the games that cost you if you end up missing the playoffs, especially late in a pennant race or in the playoffs. So I just hope the Phillies start becoming more consistent and start winning some of these games that they're supposed to win. The pitching has been pretty good as of late. The bullpen has been iffy as of late. But in terms of the lineup, the guy that I'm really worried about is Trey Turner. The Phillies signed him to an 11-year, $300+ million contract, and he's been a major disappointment. He's hitting 240 right now, or 237 now. He's swinging at bad pitches out of the strike zone. He looks lost on defense at shortstop. He just looks like a shell of himself, sadly, and I just hope that he gets it together, because he's a great player when he has it together, and he just looks really lost. And I feel so bad for the guy, because I like the guy, and him playing Philly is like Boston and New York, where if a player is down and they're struggling, they're gonna boo the crap out of you, and your confidence, which was already lost, would get even more lost. So I just feel bad for him, and I hope he gets it together soon, because I think that if he does, the Phillies will go a long way for sure. In terms of the trade deadline, Ben, you did mention that they got Michael Lorenzen. That was a great addition, because the Phillies needed a fifth starter. That's what they needed, and they got him in Michael Lorenzen. They gave up, I believe, their 5th best prospect, which was kind of steep for rental. But you had to get that 5th starter and solidify the rotation. You can't just be throwing bullpen games like every 5th day. That's just not going to get you anywhere. So I'm glad the Phillies got Lorenzen. He's a very solid pitcher. And he, in his debut, he pitched extremely well, going 8 innings. I believe he only gave up 2 runs. He did really well for the Phillies. And then they got a guy named Rodolfo Castro, who he's known for when he was sliding into third base, dropping a cell phone out of his pocket and then like a couple days later getting fined by Major League Baseball for that. He's a solid infielder. I think he could provide some good defense, but I'm very confused as to why the Phillies didn't go out and get a left fielder. I'm very confused, because I think that now with Harper back to playing a position on the field, you can move Schwarber to the DH, you can move Castellanos to the DH at times. I thought they should have gotten a left fielder to fortify the defense in the outfield, and the fact that they didn't, it kind of confuses me, because there were pretty solid outfielders available on the market. So I am kind of confused by that. But I think overall, I think the Phillies, they have an easy schedule coming up. And, I just hope they pick it up and start beating these teams that they're supposed to be, because if they can, they'll definitely go on a roll for sure. As far as the A's are concerned, they are off tonight. They played the Dodgers in a 3-game set this past week, and they got shelled and they got swept. And luckily, it wasn't that bad of a blowout. I thought the the A's would lose to the Dodgers like 15-1 every single game. But hey, the Dodgers only won like 6-1. They only won, I think the second game they won like 9-2 or something. So it wasn't as bad. Like it was bad, but it still wasn't that bad. Then the A's play the Giants in a 2-game set, the Bay Bridge series, and then I'm trying to see who else they play after that. I think after they play the Giants, I believe they play the Cardinals, right? Oh, no, they play the Texas Rangers. The Rangers, that's going to be tough. Then they play the Nationals, the battle of the two teams that are vying for the number 1 pick. And then they play the Cardinals in mid-August, which should be interesting because another 2 teams that are battling for the lottery picks in the MLB draft. So, I think for the A's, as long as they keep fighting and the young guys keep showing potential, that's all I'm asking for. I know Soderstrom, one of our top prospects, hit a home run yesterday, his first career home run. Zach Geloff has been amazing for the A's. I know he's only hitting like 212, but he's got like 5 home runs in 10 games played. And, the A's, I'm surprised that they actually made moves at the deadline because, like, I was talking to you, Ben, and James on past shows. I thought the A's had nothing to trade. I didn't think that anybody would even give us anything and make trades with us for our players because our players just flat out stunk. And the fact that we got a quality prospect for Jace Peterson, who was hitting like 206, that's a win. That's a miracle win. And then we traded away Sam Moll, who has a 5.13 ERA, and we got another prospect back. I mean, that's a win too. And I think we traded Fujinami.
He's looked really good, by the way.
What was that?
He's been looking really good in Baltimore. He got the save tonight, by the way. So he's really doing well.
Yeah, he has. And he was looking very good for the A's before they traded him. But we got a prospect back for him as well, which was very surprising. But I'm not really surprised that Rooker didn't go because he has like 4 years of arbitration control left. I'm surprised a little that Blackburn didn't get traded. But, I mean, out of all the players the A's traded, the fact that we got a quality prospect back for Jace Peterson, just give David Forrest the AL Executive of the Year trophy.
No.
Because a 206 batting average, and you don't have to DFA him or get cash considerations back. You actually get a prospect for him in return. I mean, that's crazy, man. I don't know what the Diamondbacks are doing down there in the desert.
All right. Now we'll quickly go to my Red Sox team report. The Red Sox are 57-52. They're 5 games over 500. They're currently the first team out right now outside of looking. Actually, they're tied with the Yankees 3 games back of that first wild card spot, the third one. Obviously, we have a much pivotal weekend series right now against the Toronto Blue Jays, who are currently that 3rd team right now in the wild card picture. Tonight, we unfortunately had a 7-3 loss. Actually, the first game the Blue Jays beat us, we were 7-0 against them coming into this season, which crazy enough because they absolutely owned us last year. Obviously, a complete reversal. But obviously, they just felt like they really just had they had 5 home runs tonight. They just kind of had that feeling of a game that were just like, yeah, it's just not going to go well. James Paxton really didn't have it tonight, which was unfortunate. First pitch of the game was a home run by Whit Merrifield, and then things went south from there. The biggest thing about the Red Sox right now is they need to get some guys healthy. I know that, between Brian Dale and Cutter Crawford and James Paxton, those are kind of only 3 of our starters. But the biggest thing about the Red Sox at that deadline was they had to get starting pitching. That was the biggest thing. They don't want to keep on using these bullpen games and overworking their arms because you don't have the bullpen out, tired when obviously that your starters go, into games. You don't want to have them specifically. If they have a bad one, obviously, you don't want to be overworked as well too. So hopefully specifically that, Sale and Halker are supposed to be coming back soon. Apparently Kruse said that Waylock could be going to the bullpen, which could be really, really good because I personally think that's where he should be going anyway. So if you look at it in theory, They have ways that they can make the rotation work out, but they just got to be really consistent. So they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They've been really up and down. They haven't been as good as they have been in the past. But they lost 2-3 to Seattle. The third game was very winnable. They were up 3-0, and then after Cutter pitched really well, Schreiber came in. He pitched 2 innings, which I think was a mistake by Cora. Left him in the second of that 7th inning too long. Seattle had a big inning there, and they ended up winning that game specifically after that. So that was really frustrating. And then, of course, they lost tonight. So they're still 5 games over. Obviously, thankfully, that some of the teams like, the Yankees, even Seattle right now is currently tied with us record-wise. So obviously, hopefully that your Angels, James, could potentially take advantage maybe this weekend. Time will tell about that.
No.
But regardless of the fact, though, I'm a little disappointed about Bloom at the deadline specifically. He only got this guy Luis Arias, who's been he's been the Brewers' second baseman. They actually DFA'd Christian Arroyo today because Trevor Story is going to be coming back pretty soon. So that's going to be massive for the Red Sox. They had to obviously activate him, hopefully by this series, but time will tell about that. One guy right now specifically I'm a little worried about is Alex Verdugo. He's kind of struggled as of late. They put him in the 2-hole today, and he had a big opportunity to have the Red Sox obviously come back into this game, and he struck out against Manoah. But Jaron Durant has been fantastic, and I don't get off full for the Red Sox. He's really blossomed into an overall player. I mean, he is lightning quick, fast. I mean, who's the Flash? That's Jaron Durant. That's who it really is. I mean, to see him just run the bases is incredible. So this team obviously still has a pulse for sure, but they really got to win these 2 games coming up this weekend, and they have 2 winnable matchups, which is why this weekend series is critical because they have the Tigers and they have the Royals at Fenway Park after this series. So I personally feel pretty good about those 2 series after this Toronto series. But then you look at it afterwards of that, then you have the Yankees, you have the Dodgers, you have the Houston Astros twice this month. So, the end part of this month for the Red Sox is going to be really, really tough. So they have to make sure that, like Isaiah, that you mentioned with your Phillies, the Red Sox have to be able to control their own destiny to at least kind of be right around that overall spot of that wild card. Or else it can get really ugly by the end of this month. So, obviously, tough loss today for the Red Sox, but they're still within that wild card picture. And like I said, the trade deadline for them was a little underwhelming, but I'm not surprised by them either. Bloom has really believed in this team. Obviously, myself personally, I know that they were kind of looking at potentially trading Justin Turner at the trade deadline. They obviously didn't do that, but they had some potential options, but they just didn't do really much of anything. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. So, without further ado, guys, team reports are concluded. Let's switch over to the trade deadline recap. Kind of go out, of course, around the league. Of course, James, we talked about your Angels already in terms of Ohtani and the moves that they made with Ronaldo Lopez, CJ Cron, Grichuk. Obviously mentioned about those. Isaiah, in terms of your Phillies, Lorenzen. The A's, of course, they moved on from Jace Peterson from our Red Sox. They got Luis Arias, who is pretty much a lot in AAA this year for, I believe, the Brewers AAA squad. So pretty much kind of all our teams, but kind of outside of our teams. And I know Isaiah is really big on this team now. Of course, he posts about the Texas Rangers. Of course, now on that off the air here. So I'll go over to Isaiah because I know he's really excited because now the Texas Rangers currently, apparently, according to Bruce Bochy that I read yesterday or today, Nathan Eovaldi has a 2 to 3 week setback with his injury. So that makes it even more critical for the Texas Rangers to have some key arms in their rotation. Hopefully, Nasty is back and ready to go and help because I love him. But Max Scherzer, who, of course, the Mets essentially, their fire sale, they essentially moved on from a ton of pieces. Of course, they are really unraveling as we speak now to this day. Of course, they moved on from Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, who we'll talk about where he goes in a little bit, Mark Canha, and some others. But Max Scherzer going to the Texas Rangers. The Rangers have been a really good story this year with Bruce Bochy and some others. They're in first place. And they're playing just really, really good baseball right now. They're actually playing the Marlins right now currently in this series this weekend. So that's a pretty good, interesting series. But what do you think, Isaiah and James, in terms of the Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery moves? I know you guys talked about it without me, but obviously to kind of revisit with myself here. I think those moves are amazing for the Texas Rangers, personally. They really already had a good rotation as is. Now you put two guys in specifically. One is, of course, a Hall of Famer. It's going to get us out of Max Scherzer. And then Jordan Montgomery, who's been a fantastic story first half of the St. Louis Cardinals. He pretty much puts stability in that overall middle part of their rotation. And not really with that rotation, really cooking with gas, to be honest, because they just have a really good – Dane Dunning's been really good. John Grace had a pretty decent first half. So I'll go to you guys. Your overall thoughts quickly of the Texas Rangers moves with Max Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery. I'll start with you, Isaiah.
Well, number one, I should buy a lottery ticket because I literally called that Scherzer trade a couple months ago when the rumors came out that that Max Scherzer was open to waiving his no trade clause. I said, Texas, you got to get on it because you lost DeGrom. You need an ace come postseason time. Nathan Eovaldi, I like that guy. He's not an ace though. He's more like a number two. Martin Perez has struggled. Andrew Heaney is more like a 4 and a 5. Dane Dunning is a young rookie, I believe, so he doesn't have postseason experience. To get ready for the playoffs, to win in the playoffs, you need that ace. You need the guy that's been there and done it. And Max Scherzer, he's been there. He's done it. And he's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Like, I know the numbers aren't that great for Max Scherzer, but still, he's a future Hall of Famer. The guy is pitching outstanding right now. He pitched outstanding in his debut for the Texas Rangers. He is exactly what the Texas Rangers needed, and I'm so glad that Chris Young and the front office of Texas went all in and got him, because that's the type of move, that's the type of savvy move that you need in order to win a championship. Chris Young saw that DeGrom was out for the year, and he could have just been like, oh, it's not our year. We're dealing with so many injuries. But then he goes out and gets Max Scherzer, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Like, kudos to Chris Young, kudos to the Texas Rangers. And not only that, they went out and got Jordan Montgomery, who's been very solid. He's a very solid number one. He could be a number one or a number two, more likely a number two than a one. And then the addition that not a lot of people are talking about is Chris Stratton. This guy has emerged as a really good reliever, a guy that can pitch dominantly in the 7th inning, the 6th inning, and really help lengthen that Rangers bullpen. And now you look at what the Rangers have done, right? In addition to their lineup, their biggest issue was starting pitching and also relief help. That's what they needed. And they accomplished it by getting Max Scherzer, Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. They get Jordan Montgomery, who was a guy that a lot of teams I beg your pardon, wanted to trade for, as he was one of the best starting pitchers in all of baseball this season. And they get Chris Stratton, who now can help you lengthen that bullpen. You can have a quartet of Stratton in the 6th, Sborz in the 7th, Chapman in the 8th, and Will Smith in the 9th. Or you could do maybe Sborz in the 6th, Stratton in the 7th, Chapman in the 8th, and Will Smith in the 9th. Like, that Rangers bullpen got exponentially better with the addition of Chris Stratton. And, the Texas Rangers right now are my World Series favorites. They did what they had to do. Their lineup's going to keep producing. Their pitching, I think, is going to keep shutting down teams. And with Bruce Bochy there and Mike Maddox, one of the top pitching coaches in all of baseball, I mean, it's just crazy what the Rangers have done, and I can't wait to see what Texas continues to do down the stretch. And it's going to be fascinating in the AL West, because I think Texas had to make this move since they knew that Houston was going to do something big. We knew that Houston, whether it was acquiring Verlander, which they did, or getting someone else, they were going to do something big. And it's like an arms race right now in the AL West. And, Texas, they had to do it. They had to match what Houston did, and they went out and got it, and bravo to Chris Young in that front office. And the Rangers are showing, man, that they are the AL favorites for sure.
Yeah, before we get over to James, John, welcome to the program tonight, my friend. How are you doing?
Well, how y'all doing, Bud Steppers? It's good to be here. My voice is a little bit hoarse. Been a long week. Obviously screaming at the TV because I don't know how the hell the lights went out during the Hall of Fame game last night.
Oh.
But happy to be here, and whenever I get a chance, and definitely frustrated about my Padres right now.
Yeah, I mean, quickly before we go over to James, the Padres actually made, I think, a move for Scott Barlow to help boost their bullpen. They did also keep Josh Hader, Blake Snell, and some others. So really, in that case, for your Padres, John, they really didn't go into selling mode. They were able to keep with buying mode, and they currently obviously right now have a massive series this weekend against the Dodgers. So time will tell specifically on how they finish the rest of this season. James, your overall thoughts on that Scherzer and Jordan Montgomery moves to the Rangers, and obviously now since they're now into your division, how they obviously affect in terms of your Angels, and just your overall thoughts on those two moves.
It just means they're going to beat the Angels. I mean, they're going to sweep the Angels next week at home. Yeah, it's definitely a two-team race. I think Seattle is going to vie for a wild card, but probably won't get there. But you knew Houston was eventually going to grow. But man, Texas, they're going for it, and it's something to be admiring because you can say, well, they're going for it with Seager and Simeon a couple of years ago in the offseason with those free agent moves. But then they had all this young talent come up, and there's still more to come up as well. They didn't have to give the Mets much for Scherzer, by the way. I think it was only Acuna Jr.'s brother. So, and he still has a couple of years for him to come up and be an MLB player. So they made some really great moves. Again, mentioning who they brought in as well. Chapman before the deadline, of course, but Montgomery, Stratton, these are impactful players. And it might keep him in first place. It might not. I thought Houston was going to be a little more active, getting maybe another starter other from Verlander, but they did go out and get Graveman. So they got Graveman back. So that was a good move. So I think Texas, if they can get over the hump of the Astros, then they'll be the favorites.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, I just thought it was a really good move. John, do you have any overall thoughts on the Scherzer Montgomery news to the Rangers?
I'm happy for Texas. At least one damn Texas team is doing good, stupid Steve. But no, I'm happy for him because I think, like Isaiah said, usually it's easy for a lot of these teams when you have your major guys get out for the rest of the season. Oh, we're screwed. We're going to crap the bed, pull out a couple of Hershey's Kisses. But I think it's a good move. I think it really just shows that you believe in this team and that you're really not to give up. Because when we think of the Texas Rangers, to be honest, just like the Cowboys the past couple of years, like, are they really a team that we see making these kind of cuts? Would we have envisioned this team, Ben and James, making this kind of move last year or the year before? Probably not. So
Absolutely.
I think whatever turned in his head mentally, they need to keep this up. I'm not saying it's going to get them to a World Series or anything crazy, but making those moves, having the guts to do it, I think really just shows how you are as a leader.
And Chris John is pretty much saying, we don't need prospects. We're essentially a born ready type team right now that we're going to put the chips in and get everything we can get to put a competitive product out there. And yeah, it might come at a cost, but like I always say, prospects don't always lead to results. Obviously some do, but a lot of the time they don't as well also. So did you want to also say something, Isaiah? It looked like
if I could add, you're right about the prospects thing, and this is why I always advocate for teams that are in the hunt to just trade it all for proven talent, because it's like with the A's, we could have made a move for Scherzer back in 2019 when he got traded instead to the Dodgers, I believe, or 2019, 2020 or 2021. And we didn't want to part with our top three prospects, who at that time was Nick Allen, Seth Brown, and it was, I believe, Soderstrom to the Dodge or to the Nationals for Scherzer. And you look at these guys now. Nick Allen's hitting 186. And I think he's a career like 190 something hitter. He's a bona fide scrub.
Just like your takes.
Well, you look at Tyler Soderstrom. He's all right. He's hitting 200.
That's not what your mom said last
Like,
night.
It's honestly like the thing with the prospects is these prospects are not guaranteed. And with baseball's the hardest sport for young players to adapt and young players to project young players, since with baseball it's just so hard. So I'm just glad that the Rangers are going for it and not getting any of these prospects or trying to bank on any of these prospects. And about Acuna, like James mentioned, I mean, the guy is 3 years away from being in the big leagues. The guy is just, he's not even going to be able, even if he does come up with the Rangers, he's going to be a shortstop at second base, which is something the Rangers already have for like the next 5 to 7 years with Seager and Semien signed. So I'm kudos to Chris Young for just pushing the chips all in and going for it.
All right. Now, obviously, we'll kind of get some other moves that happened. I obviously didn't get the chance to kind of hear all the moves that you guys talked about, James and Isaiah, off the air. But some other ones specifically that really impressed me, the Blue Jays, they acquired Jordan Hicks to boost their back in their bullpen. Of course, John Romano got injured. Hicks came into actually tonight against the Red Sox and was throwing absolute flames. Actually, he was one of the guys I thought the Red Sox would take a look at for the bullpen, but of course not. He goes to a division foe. Mark Canha, obviously the Mets currently are in their fire sale, and he was a former Athletic Isaiah, of course, and he's going to Brewers. I thought that was a really fascinating move for them. Obviously, I'm not really sure how much playing time he'll get, but he'll probably get at least a decent amount. And then another Met, Tommy Pham. He is also going to the National League. He's going to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Really good move for them. I really like what the Diamondbacks are really building around there. And also the Diamondbacks got somebody from the Mariners. The Mariners were kind of a team at the deadline, guys, that, there were reports out there that they were listening to guys like Ty France and who else? Teoscar Hernandez, two guys specifically that I didn't personally think they were going to move on from, which they didn't. But they did move on from Paul Sewell, essentially their closer. So that was a team that really kind of shocked me specifically there. Couple other moves specifically that really interested me. Heimer Candelario, who's done a really good job so far with his new team in Chicago. The Cubs have been red hot. I think there's like a stat that Candelario is like 8 for 11 since he's came to the Cubs, which is really unheard of, a guy that can go right away to a new place. So that was incredible. And then the Dodgers, they got Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly in a package. Obviously, Kelly's back with the Dodgers, and then Lance Lynn, of course, helps boost their rotation. And then there's some teams that didn't they didn't obviously sell off any pieces. Cody Bellinger, Marcus Stroman, Eduardo Rodriguez was a guy that I thought he was all but gone, right? And there was reports that he could have went to the Dodgers. But apparently he was on like their no trade list or something, and then Erod essentially just reported that. It was crazy. And I guess they interviewed him about that. But I guess that he might have a qualifying offer this offseason, so he's going to get a decent overall return back. And then the biggest news, I think, out of all of them, guys, was Dylan Cease. There is essentially potentially Dylan Cease after Max Scherzer was on the move, and Justin Verlander went to Houston, which we'll talk about. Dylan Cease was kind of the next domino that I thought was going to potentially get moved if it wasn't for Rodriguez, and the White Sox did not move on from him. The White Sox really didn't move on from a lot of their pieces, which was really surprising. So I know I kind of put a lot of that out there for you guys specifically, but what were some of the big other moves that you guys really thought at the deadline that are going to be very impactful moves? And what are some overall teams that you're just a little surprised that they didn't do as much as you thought they were going to do come by this point in time? So, for example, at least for me specifically, I loved the Rays move getting Aaron Savali. That was just essentially you put him in that middle part of the rotation, give him stability with Shane McClanahan, who, by the way, has had a lot of problems in the past with his injuries. as well as Tyler Glass now. But Savali really kind of gives them at least that middle stability in that rotation. Jaime Candelario, I think, was a really good move for the Cubs. The Cubs are really playing good baseball right now. And Candelario's going in. I just felt like the fit was great all along. He could stay in the National League. And then my biggest shock was the White Sox really didn't sell a lot of pieces at this deadline. I thought that, I know they moved on from Middleton. He went to the Yankees, which, by the way, we'll talk, of course, about the deadline, our winners and losers really quick as well, too. Anderson didn't get moved. I thought he was potentially going to move on. I didn't think Luis Robert was. I think he's pretty much untouchable. But maybe Jorge Jimenez, Dylan Cease. So that was essentially my team that I thought was going to do more of. But yeah, you know what? I'll start with John here. John, obviously, was there any type of moves outside of the Scherzer Montgomery moves that obviously you felt that caught our eye openers? Of course, for me, of course, to Justin Verlander going back to Houston. They're, of course, trying to battle out with their division foe now with the Rangers. So what was your overall thoughts? And was there another type of team that you thought could have done more at this past deadline?
Houston, stop it. Screw you. First of all, I want to talk to my damn Padres. What the hell is the matter with y'all? Y'all try to go through a big trade tonight. Tonight, you're down 7-4. It's just like when this team makes a slight bit of progress, their dumbass puts their head so far up their own ass, and they go the opposite direction. I don't understand. Like, they made these big moves last year, right? And then now all of a sudden this team just shits the bed, and you don't know what the hell they're doing. And I think it's just frustrating because when you're a team that wants to pick a team, right, to watch baseball, it's the Padres. And then they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And I'll give the Rangers credit. The Astros are like the Chiefs of the NFL, meaning stop making the moves. Let us have a freaking championship before I have grandkids when I'm 80 years old. Like, this is getting ridiculous, man. Like, give us a championship. But like I said, I'll give the Rangers credit, man. I think that was, to me, the most, I don't know if you call it underrated. I would think the most, at least in my opinion, because I don't watch a lot of baseball because I've been busy with working stuff, but the most over or underlooked thing, because you didn't expect it, right? It's like Isaiah having a correct take about football and quarterbacks. It doesn't happen very often, but occasionally once in a blue moon, it happens. Sorry, I had a cough there. My bad.
All right. James, what was your overall thoughts on the other moves that happened around the league for the deadline? Any type of moves that really stood out to you? And then is there any team specifically that you were surprised about that made a ton of moves, and a team that specifically you thought was going to sell off a lot of pieces that did not?
Okay, the White Sox are definitely the latter of those questions. I thought they were going to have a fire sale. They had the pieces to do it, and a lot of teams needed what they had. So I was surprised. I was at work, and I'm thinking, okay, Dylan Cease is next. Dylan Cease has to be. 3 o'clock comes around. Okay, maybe 5 minutes later, maybe a deal will be struck or it will be reported. Nothing. I'm like, what are the White Sox doing? They're out of it. Not mathematically, but they've been out of it since April. But yeah, Tim Anderson, you mentioned Robert for the right price. But then they trade Lopez to the Angels, which he has some great stuff too. I figured you'd keep someone like that around. So I'm kind of shocked by the White Sox not selling all their pieces, doing a whole rebuild like they really should. I think it was time for that. But I think they wanted to show, hey, we can still compete. We could keep who we have, who we know. But that was really weird. What was your first question? The teams that.
So my first question was the overall moves that you thought was the most impacted, like outside of the ones we talked about,
okay.
And of course the teams specifically that you felt that did enough specifically, and then some teams that you felt that should have done more.
Oh well, I think honestly, I'm gonna say both Texas teams did enough. That's for sure for the second question. And then the first one that really no one is talking. The first question, the team that made some deals that really aren't being talked about. I'm going to say the Miami Marlins. They are in this wild card race, and they just got better. And you wouldn't think so. You would think the Marlins would be out already, but They got Josh Bell, big power hitter from where did he go? Cleveland? Yeah, that's right. He went to Cleveland free agency. Jake Berger from the White Sox.
Yep.
So you figure, okay.
By the way, they're doing already promotions for burger nights at
That's right, $5 burgers there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted...
there. No, that's good.
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to mention that. And you would think me being a foodie, I would mention that right away when I hear the word burger. I go crazy.
Come on, James.
but yeah,
I'm gonna go to Miami, James. Come on now.
Come on, burgers and bourbon, man. Come on.
Yes. So Berger and Bell, the B-boys, with the power going to Miami. That's something they really needed. Like when you think about what Miami already has, they already have the solid hitting Arise, right? That only makes them better and a threat. And then also the bullpen ads they did with Jorge Lopez and David Robertson. That's a really good bullpen now to what they already have and their starters as well. I think Miami, they low-key won the low-key deadline. You know, all the power moves were other teams. I mean, even the Padres, when you think about it, they got G-Man Choi, Rich Hill, Scott Barlow, and Garrett Cooper. That would be helpful. They weren't splashy moves, and they couldn't make splashy moves because they're tied to so many other players with big money. But those are 4 moves, and they're only, I think, 4.5 now out of the wild card. Or no, 4 games out because everybody lost, but they couldn't get a game on LA tonight or versus LA tonight. But those were under the table moves. You got to think about the Cubs, like you mentioned, with Candelero, and then also they got I'm gonna blow this dude's name, but Coop, the reliever. I forgot his name, but I think that would be a good move there. And then my last one is the Orioles, but I thought they would have traded for more. They did get Jack Flaherty and Paul DeJong. Oh, no, just Jack Flaherty from the Cardinals. And I thought that was a team also that would have traded some more. I know they did before the deadline.
We got Fujinami too.
Yeah, and then Fujinami as well. And then looking at the Blue Jays, they had to get Paul DeJong because of the injury to Bichette. But they also went out and got Jordan Hicks, Genesis Cabrera, which is a really good, strong reliever, because Jordan Romano also got hurt, their closer. So that's 2 needs that they shored up there, relieving pitching and then an infielder from injuries. So, and then Chris Stratton, of course. So those are my under-the-radar moves. You know, everybody was expecting the Yankees to do a move, the Reds, the Giants, the Twins. They didn't do anything. So those are kind of my losers in this trade deadline. And you mentioned, Ben, with the Red Sox, I don't think they expect it to be where they are this year, to be honest with you. Sure. I think everybody can really honestly admit that. So I don't think they want to hurt their process of all the players that they have coming up by making a trade deadline splash or a rental. So I think that was very smart by the Red Sox. That's my take on why Boston really wasn't a loser in that case, but they just stood pat because they know that whatever's happening is, house money. So that's what I thought about Boston.
All right, and how about you, Isaiah? Your overall big move outside of the moves that we have talked about so far, and then some teams that you felt that – I guess I'm pretty much kind of asking you guys the winners and losers at this point in time. It's kind of like it's kind of that overall question at this point in time. So your over kind of feels like winners, I guess you can say, and then the losers in terms of the teams you felt that could have sold off more.
You know, besides the moves that we've talked about, I feel like out of all the moves, James nailed it. Miami definitely with their moves of landing Jake Berger, who I didn't even think was going to be available. I mean, this guy had a lot of years of arbitration control left, and somehow, some
I was
way,
shocked too.
the Marlins decided to trade him instead of building around him or building with him, and he gets dealt. And they get I think a couple prospects back, but I mean it was not really that good of a return.
They
for
also
the
traded
White
Garrett
Sox.
Cooper, by the way.
What was that?
They traded Garrett Cooper to San Diego, and
Yep.
Cooper is playing first base, and I think Berger plays first base in DHs.
Yeah, so they basically swapped Garrett Cooper for Jake Berger, and I think that's a huge win for Miami.
Mhm.
And then you think about all the moves that the Marlins have made. You think about guys like they made the move for David Robertson to get the back end of the bullpen settled because AJ Puck has been awful as of late. I think that was a great move. You look at the other moves that they went out. Josh Bell, I mean, that was a really good move for Miami. Josh Bell, great move. Power hitting first baseman / DH will definitely bring a lot more production for the Marlins offense. Miami's a huge winner for sure. Toronto won with the Paul DeJong trade. They needed to get a replacement for Bo Bichette. That was a great move getting Paul DeJong to come there. In terms of the other moves that happened, the Dodgers, I felt like I'll give them a passing grade, but I felt like they should have done a lot more. They were in on almost every trade deadline target, but they ended up only getting Lance Lynn, who I feel like needed a change of scenery. But I feel like I feel like he's past his prime. And I think right now, I know he's, maybe a change of scenery will do him good. But I just feel like for Lance Lynn, maybe he just doesn't have it anymore. He's got a 6-point-something ERA. We'll see what happens with him in LA. But they needed that number 1 or number 2. They needed another top of the line starter. And they weren't really that aggressive in getting Verlander. They weren't really that aggressive. They tried to get Eduardo Rodriguez. That didn't happen. But I feel like they should have been a lot more aggressive in getting Justin Verlander, because not only do you get him, you get another front of the line starter, but you also take him away from your nemesis, Houston. It's basically an addition by subtraction. And I don't know why the Dodgers didn't went more aggressive after him. And then, I feel like the other moves, Jack Flaherty to the Orioles, they needed a front of the line starter. That was a great move for them. And then I'm going to be a little biased here. Michael Lorenzen to the Phillies. I love that move for the Phillies. They needed a fit starter.
It's a good move.
I've been on this show several times clamoring the Phillies need a fit starter. You can't just keep going bullpen game after bullpen game after bullpen game. You need a fit starter. They went out and got the fit starter. So I would say that the Phillies definitely, I like what they did. In terms of winners and losers, I think I already gave some winners. Texas. I know we talked about them, but the Texas Rangers, that's why I posted on Facebook, I'm adopting the Texas Rangers as another one of my teams, because
Are you trying to piss Chris off? Are you trying to lose a friend in Chris? I mean, you just ruined his whole year.
After the Texas Rangers made all those splashy moves and all those great moves, I went to my nearby casino and put $50 on the Rangers to win the World Series. That's how much I believe in the Texas Rangers to win the World Series. The Rangers.
Okay, if they don't win it, you give me that damn $50.
Hey, I'm not giving you that money. I'm giving it to the sports bookie at the casino. But the Rangers,
you don't have it. Monopoly money didn't count.
They're definitely my favorite in the AL. Great moves getting Scherzer and Montgomery and Stratton as well. I love those moves. I felt like the other winner was obviously Houston. I mean, they got back Verlander, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. They countered what the Rangers did in getting Max Scherzer, so that was a big move for them. And then, I'm going to be a little biased on this. The Oakland A's. The fact that we were able to trade these scrubs.
Shut your ass up. You're going to freaking Vegas.
Hey, who cares about the Vegas move? The fact that we were able to trade these scrubs for prospects. I mean, that's the miracle of the year. Forget the Justin Jefferson 4th and 18 catch. That's the miracle
Whoa,
of the year.
whoa, no.
You traded guys that should be working at freaking Dunkin' Donuts or at the concession stands in the Oakland Coliseum, and you got prospects.
Well, we know a guy that does.
Man. I mean, I'm excited as hell for it. And then as far as the losers, I got 3 losers. Number 1, I can't believe none of y'all brought this up yet. It's got to be this team. The New York Mets. One of the biggest disasters.
They got rid of a ton of their. They should be more of a winner. They got a ton of theirs. They shed a lot of their money off though.
Well, they did, but here's the thing: they put the chips all in this year, right? They went out, got Scherzer, they got Verlander. They had such a high price roster, and you don't even last a full season with this roster. You blow it up halfway through the season. And Steve Cohen had to pay $100 million to the Texas Rangers and the Astros. I mean, this guy, I know he's the richest owner in baseball. I know I think he's worth like $9 billion or something like that. I mean, heck, dude, this guy should use some of his money and help America pay off our freaking debt, for goodness sakes. But I mean, this guy gives $100 million to the Rangers and the Astros to pay guys that not gonna pitch for his team this season just to get couple prospects back in return. I mean, what an absolute mess of a season! What an absolute bomb of a project for the New York Mets. And I mean, I can't believe it. Ben and James, listening to New York sports talk radio the last several days have been absolutely entertaining. Just seeing these guys go off and melt down about the total dysfunction that is the New York Mets. And I now know why that the term for the Mets is LOL Mets, because they literally are low Mets. That's what they are. I mean, whatever can go wrong will go wrong for this team. And the other losers, second loser, the San Francisco Giants. I don't understand their strategy. They only got AJ Pollock, who was injured at that time when they got him, and that's it. Like, you're 2 games back of the Dodgers for the NL West.
Yeah.
Not making any more moves to try to chase the Dodgers. You're only 2 games back. It's not like it's not doable. It's totally doable, and you didn't do anything whatsoever to try to counter the Dodgers. Like, I don't know what Farhan Zaidi is doing there in San Francisco. There's people in the Bay Area that still think, there's a fraction of people that still think that Farhan Zaidi is like a secret agent sent by the Dodgers to ruin the Giants. Maybe that's why he didn't do anything. But, I mean, I don't know what the Giants are doing. And the last loser is another New York team, the Yankees. Your team is basically lifeless. Your team is basically dead at this point. You need a left fielder. You don't get a left fielder. You only settle for Keenan Middleton. Like, what are you even doing?
So bad.
Yeah, it is so bad. And I know, Ben, you and I texted afterwards. I was like, what are the Yankees doing? I really don't know what they're doing. They needed something to really help them get a spark. And, Keenan Middleton, like, he's a good player, but he's not going to be that game changer for you. Like, I don't know why the Yankees didn't try to go get Scherzer. I don't know why they didn't try to go get some of the big guys out there. It just doesn't make sense, especially for, like, a franchise like the New York Yankees. So, for me, those are my losers. And I think that, if the Yankees, if they don't make the playoffs, I could see a house cleaning in New York with Cashman and Boone both being gone.
You talked about the Yankees, and that was obviously one of the losers I had. Of course, my Red Sox really didn't do much, but of course, being around, by myself, being near the New York metropolitan area within an hour away, I have a ton of my friends and a ton of people. Obviously, actually, my other show on the Eastern Coast, I have some buddies that are Yankee fans, Met fans, you name it. And, I have people that are Yankee fans that rant. Crazy enough, they just go crazy about their incompetence with their organization. And did you guys hear, by the way, of Anthony Rizzo in terms of what's going on with that situation?
Yeah.
So if you guys haven't heard about Anthony Rizzo, for 2 months, right, he essentially was playing, he was one of the best hitters for like the first couple months of the season. And then he got hit during one of the games in the Padres series I think it was by Fernando Tatis Jr. I think it was maybe a pickoff or something like that, and he got clipped, I think, and potentially in the head from it. And they really didn't say much about it. He kept on playing. He kept on going through it. And then all of a sudden, a couple days ago, he didn't play a couple of games. He was really, really struggling. We're just like, maybe it's just a funk, but it was more than a funk. It was just like he was completely just out of whack. And we're just like, Anthony Rizzo's just not this bad of a hitter. And then, you see Elston literally happen from Aaron Boone. And you see, after essentially what the Yankees just did at the trade deadline, not addressing any type of batters. Essentially, Isaiah, I respectfully disagree in terms of the Yankees at the deadline. They needed left field help. They needed some bats specifically in that lineup because you saw essentially, I know Judge is back, they did not produce at all with that lineup without Aaron Judge. They just didn't. If Aaron Judge goes down, their lineup is absolutely – I mean, DJ LeMahieu is just not the same guy he used to be. He's batting 240 or whatever. He's broken down. Gleyber Torres, there was reports that Gleyber Torres could have been gone at the trade deadline. He sticked around, but who knows about him during the future. Jake Bowers was like one of the best hitters. And no offense to Jake Bowers, but if Jake Bowers and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa are your best hitters on your team specifically, that is the New York Yankees, I don't know. I don't know who you are out there. You should not have that. This is why I tell Yankee fans, I'm just like, in terms of your ownership and your confidence in terms of your team, they always talk about a big game saying they're going to go deep and so forth. So be it. They're the New York Yankees. They're not going to win anything until they essentially move on from some of their front office. Because I don't trust them essentially from a rival perspective that they're going to do the right overall decision. They're kind of like a similar way in the Red Sox, but like in terms of the overall long-term future. And like since 2009, they really haven't done anything specifically to kind of tell me that they're going to win something else until their front office being gone. So, Anthony Rizzo, of course, they just put on the IL and he was talking about it. And, just complete crazy story specifically, on that overall end there. So, they're playing the Astros this weekend. So they have a really big series there, and they're still technically in it. So, so I know that's some of the trade deadline stuff that we kind of talked into. Obviously, we're going to save some of the second half, feelings in terms of how we kind of feel about the teams for ours on Sunday. We'll kind of get more into that stuff. But the last thing I want to get into really quick for baseball was Cole Hamels, long-term pitcher, officially retired. I know Isaiah from our Phillies. He was a long-term pitcher there. But this, of course, was a guy specifically that was I don't know if he's going to be a Hall of Famer type, worthy type, but really good pitcher, for a long time. And, he had a lot of good years with him. He pitched for, I don't know how many teams. He did the Phillies, the Rangers,
Texas.
I don't know who.
Chicago, Atlanta.
Atlanta, right. Yeah, so he pitched with Atlanta. He pitched for kind of a couple teams specifically. He was 39 years old, but he just really kind of started to feel, he just didn't really have much left. But he pitched for 15 seasons, so I mean, he had a pretty good overall run with baseball in terms of for Cole Hamels. So, with that being said, John, Cole Hamels, actually a San Diego native. In terms of for him, he retired. Do you happen to remember anything about in terms of Cole Hamels and just kind of overall thoughts really quick about that before we shift over to football?
Like you say, 15 seasons is a lot, bro. I can't even last 15 years, 15 years playing Madden. Just to be able to play that long, I'll give him full credit. But like I said, I'm going to need y'all this offseason to teach me more baseball because I'm way behind.
Gotcha.
And I need to know all the terminology and stuff.
All right. Isaiah. What do you think of the Cole Hamels news? Of course, a long-term Philly, obviously massive news there. And he, like I said, he's probably going to go on down to the Phillies Hall of Fame at some point. You look at it in terms of with him, the other guy really that, of course, is so unfortunately not with us anymore, but he was a really close pitcher with was Roy Halladay, right? They were obviously really close in terms of pitching together. I just remember those long-term Philly seasons. Of course, in the World Series against the Rays, I think. And the Yankees, Cole Hamels was a major part of those rotation. And he was just really good. I remember that devastating changeup that he had. Very just deceptive. He was able to go back and forth in terms of how he was able to mix his location and his pitches. So just your overall thoughts about this, and just kind of just where you feel with Cole Hamels like that.
I'm not surprised that he retired because he hadn't pitched in 2-3 years already. So I'm not surprised that he retired. But congrats to him on a great career. I mean, he was a great Philly. He was so dominant during that 2008 run. I remember he was Madison Bumgarner before Madison Bumgarner. I mean, this guy was just tremendous. Anytime he stepped on the mound, those hitters just basically bowed down to him because it was like you face him and it's an automatic out. That's how dominant he was back in 2008. And he was just lights out, especially against the Rays, against the Dodgers. I believe the Brewers, I think against the Brewers in that first round. He was just amazing. And, 2008, will forever be linked to him. It's a shame though that he only won one World Series, because if you look at the rotations that the Phillies had after that, right, with Cliff Lee and Hamels in 2009, and then in 2010 you had the trio of Halladay, Hamels, and Cliff Lee, and then you had it was Halladay, Hamels, and Oswalt. And then in 2011, I mean, they had that big five with Halladay, with Lee, with Hamels, with Oswalt, and with Blanton. I mean, that was like some serious greatness in those rotations. So it's a shame that he only won one championship. And it's a shame the Phillies only won one championship, because they should have had at least 2 or 3, especially with the talent on that team. But, I mean, kudos to him. Great career. He was tremendous in his prime, and maybe he could be a coach someday, like a pitching coach, because he definitely was very, very strategic, and he was very, very good when it came to pitching. He didn't really have the best stuff, but he knew how to trick you into swinging and missing.
All right, James. What's your overall thoughts on this latest news that Cliff Lee has now officially retired?
And looking up research about him, I totally forgot about this. He was trying this year to make a comeback with the San Diego Padres, and I think he realized, okay, I'm not good enough anymore. Craig Stammen also voluntarily retired as well. So, I forgot all about. Like I mentioned, I forgot all about that. Remember seeing some of his games and. This year, not with the team, but with the minors, and then with the development league, spring training. Excuse me. But he made some great strides. 163 wins, 3.43 ERA, 2,560 strikeouts on the dot. He finished top 8 in the Cy Young on 4 occasions. I think 9 of the 15 years that he pitched, he had 10 wins or more. So I just remember that trade he had, or the trade that happened with him going from Philadelphia to Texas. It felt like Philadelphia lost one of their own, honestly, in 2015. He went to Texas, but he had a couple of good years, but they were after the years that – oh, no, they didn't go to the World Series, but they were still winning in Texas. So at least he had some winning going out somewhat. In that 2020 year, he only made, I think, 1 start with Atlanta, and that was it. Definitely be remembered as a Philly. He had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight years of 10 or more wins. So right away, he was a force. From 2007 to 2012. When you have double-digit wins, which just seems to be impossible nowadays because of pitch counts and all that. So, credit to Cole Hamels. Again, from, I want to say Poway, East San Diego. So, like you mentioned, Ben, I don't think he'll make the Hall of Fame. But the Phillies will definitely put him into their Hall of Fame for sure.
Definitely. So, yeah, congrats to him. Obviously, a really good career, and best of luck in terms of his next endeavor for sure. But with that being said, guys, obviously we kind of got through a decent, at least a good hour of baseball. So now let's go to some football. Obviously, yesterday night, I guess you can say, was officially seasons back. Not really, but you know, I guess you can kind of say that game action is back. I know that the extra point was a couple days back ago. Isaiah and Lauro previewed some of that stuff for the upcoming football season. And I know that James and John, you guys were comments on there, and of course I was able to tune in for a little bit afterwards on that. But with that being said, let's kind of go quickly. I know we don't have to really quickly go into that Hall of Fame game specifically, because I know that there's really not much juice to it. But there was one guy that did play in that game that was, I guess you could say, pretty good, pretty fascinating. He's a quarterback for the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
He was the backup in that game. Do you guys just want to let me know specifically on that player again?
Dorian
DTR.
Thompson Robinson. Yeah, he came out of UCLA. Isaiah, I think we talked about him. I think he was drafted 5th or 6th round this draft.
It was
Out of
6th round.
UCLA.
I
Fifth
think.
round or sixth round, I think.
Sixth
Fifth
round, yeah.
One of those.
Yeah, so like I was watching him play, and there was there's a quarterback right now that's playing that he gives me a lot of like similar vibes to. You know, he gets on the pocket well, he throws really well. Yeah, so the Browns did end up winning that game last night by the final of 21-16. But like I said, it was really just to watch football back live, to see Tirico and Collinsworth and be like, man, I could just sit down and just be like, yeah, football is officially back on my screen. So that feels good ever since
Damn right.
February. Yeah, so, you know, I know that I went to training camp for the Patriots, so I know I did see a little bit in person. I'll get into some training camp stuff in a little bit afterward. But I'll go to James first. In terms
You
of
son of a
this
bitch.
stuff specifically. Sorry, John. I'll get to you next. So how do you feel about the Hall of Fame game if you got the chance to watch it? Was there anything that kind of really gave you any type of – I know there really is not much to this. But let's just say were you able to get to watch this game last night, and was there anything that you took out of it? Like I said, there's probably not much.
We're talking about practice.
Exactly.
No, we're actually talking about practice. We're talking about practice, not practice, though.
No,
Pratt.
yeah, just Dorian Thompson Robinson. I was able to watch some of his highlights. I was hoping he would get some type of spotlight in that game because I watched a lot of his games at UCLA being out here, and he always showed the heart, the competitiveness, the drive to lead his team to wins or try to lead him to wins. He always played USC very tough, so I was just hoping he would make some type of impact, and he did. 82 yards, passing, 1 touchdown thrown, 6 rushes for 36 yards. That's good for 6 average. So at least we saw that. Okay, I did see one big play by the Jets. Bidelsel did see a couple fumbles and an interception, and that made me think, okay, it's still preseason. And then it was odd to see Zach Wilson start a game again. I thought that would never ever happen. But then I told myself, oh yeah, it's
Isaiah's highest believer, by the way. Zach Wilson. He loves it. He loves him some Zach Wilson.
So I know he threw for 65
And he
yards.
looks good too. Don't forget about that.
3 for 5, 65 yards. That's
number
great.
3 as well.
He made that great pass and everybody went wild, but then Aaron Rodgers was there to tell him, no, I'm the starter. You should have threw here. You should have threw there. For me, the Hall of Fame game, and I know I'm getting away from the game, but I think it's all about the inductees to me. And, that great weekend is how it is now. So there's one guy I'm very happy for because I don't want to talk about the game anymore. But Zach Thomas, I'm happy that he got in from the Miami Dolphins. And I saw an interview with Jimmy Johnson who's going to induct him in. And I thought, that's going to be a great speech because Zach Thompson wasn't really highly thought of when he came in, but he made a career out of it. He was part of a great Miami defense. DeMarcus Ware also got in. The others there that waited a while. And then Joe Thomas, when you think about the Browns and the fertility he had to go through, is going in this year. And then for some damn reason, Darrelle Revis gets in right away, it seems like. And to me, I think he was only good for about, a good 4 or 5 years. And the rest of it was just fighting for a new contract. He ended up playing on other teams where he was really nothing. So I guess it was because of these two teams played. But really, I'm just happy for Zach Thomas and DeMarcus Ware.
All right. I'll get to you now, John. Did you get the chance to watch some practice football exhibition, whatever you kind of want to say, last night? And of course, yeah, like the Hall of Fame game really is kind of more the remembrance of, the Hall of Fame, kind of the stuff that they do there, of course, to honor some guys that, are going to be getting in the classes in the next couple of years. But yeah, obviously, like I said, it's good to have, I guess you could say, that some type of way football back. Of course, we're getting to a couple now weeks. I know college football is going to be officially back at the end of this month, but just good to see football back. In a way.
Oh, first of all, I'm happy for DTR because we saw last year with the guy. Again, it's just one preseason game, so we're not saying, "Oh my gosh, he's the next craziest thing." But I think it's nice to see a guy late in the rounds to have some success. Whether it leads to him getting on the roster or not, I don't know. But again, I just love seeing A&M quarterbacks lose. It just makes me feel happy because A&M can eat a bag of dirty broccoli. But the one thing I also want to talk about with this game is Zach Wilson. Where the hell was that the last 2 years? That 65, 70, again, I'm not saying he's a good quarterback, but where was that? You focus more off the field hitting on soccer moms as you did playing on the field. Where was that? Those plays here and there this past couple of years. Like I said, I'm happy for DTR. How did the power go out? The guys after the game, James, couldn't even take showers because the water was out. Like, how are you this unprepared?
Oh.
And mind you, if I remember correctly, they have to go to training camp early because they're the ones that are going to this first week of preseason, aka the Hall of Fame game, and to go to showers where now they're going to smell like the gates of Arizona just opening up. Honestly, it's just very frustrating. It's dumb for them. Like I said, it was good to have football back, if that's what you want to call it. It was practice, not practice, man. That's good. It was good. DTR, I'm happy for him. I hope he'll make the final roster at least. I just want to see the Jets on Hard Knocks. I'm curious to see because it seems like, I could be wrong, like everyone's loving playing with Rodgers, Hurley's with him off the field in New York. It just seems like his personality's opened up. But like in Green Bay, he seemed more reserved, and the guys they would like to be around him, but not like to this extent. It seems like in New York. So it's good to see, and can't wait for the Jets to have a disappointing season and be the most overhyped team this year.
All right, Isaiah, I'll get to you. Did you get the chance to watch the Hall of Fame game last night, or that practice exhibition game, whatever you want to call it? And I definitely agree with you, John. Like I said, you can't take much out of just a exhibition regular season game. But there was a couple things that Zach Wilson did in that overall part that he played last night. And at times with Zach Wilson the last couple years is he kind of at times of his progression to be kind of zone into like one person, and then he would get like sacked or be like he would get worried and stuff, and he'll throw it away or he get fumbled. But there was like one time yesterday that they even said on the broadcast that he scrambled. I know that he kind of tripped on himself, but he kind of looked at one guy and then he just kind of scrambled, right? And sometimes you kind of have to kind of be that way as a quarterback. So I just thought that was really fascinating. But yes, Isaiah, do you get the chance to watch that game last night and just overall feel that some type of football is now kind of back in capacity?
Right. You know what? I'm just so happy that football is back, man. Especially having to watch the Oakland A's, play garbage on the field every single game to the point where when I'm working at the Coliseum, I literally turn around from the baseball field and watch Family Guy or The Office or I don't know, one of the shows on the TV. Like that's how bad the A's have played. And then the Phillies are inconsistent as well, losing to teams that they aren't supposed to lose to. So yeah, it's been a pain, but it's great to see football back, man. I I watched I would say the I would say the first and the second quarter. Didn't really watch the third and the fourth, but it was really good. I mean, it was just great to see football back. It was great to see, players throwing the football around or running it. It was just great to see that. And I know you guys all brought it up, but I gotta give a massive kudos to Zach Wilson. That guy looked good last night. I know it's one game. I know it's a preseason game,
That's what
but
the soccer mom said too. But how did that work out?
hey, guess what though? This is called learning from Aaron Rodgers. That's what happens when you are under the wing of Aaron Rodgers, man. And I know it's one game, but dude, that guy looked good, and I'm happy for him because I mean he's gonna be the backup for the Jets this season and probably the next season and after that. But you got to use that to build your confidence. So that was probably my biggest takeaway was that Zach Wilson looked very, very sharp and looked good. I mean, the other parts, DTR did look good. Now I know why a lot of teams really wanted him in the draft. And I mean, it was just great to see football back in general. And it was great to see the refs calling, crazy, stupid penalties. Like I forgot there was
We're
one thing
back.
I saw early on in the game. Yeah, I mean it was just great to see football back, and I enjoyed the game, and it was competitive, which is unlike some Hall of Fame games where it's like a blowout early and you're just waiting for the game to be over. But it was good. It was good to watch it.
Nothing like seeing two things of Cody Parkey shaking the first field goal he had, and then now looking right now at the overall final and seeing that they had a cover spread for the Hall of Fame game. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, are
Yeah.
are you serious here? You're
Well,
talking about spreads for the Hall of Fame game. We're truly back, guys, in some type of way or for a fashion for
we're
sure.
already in mid-season form, and kickers are missing field goals already. So
I mean,
Yep, yep,
it's
yep,
just it's a coincidence that Cody Parkey. It just feels right that to start the season
yep.
off just missing a field goal. It's perfect.
Oh yes, for sure. All right, so obviously we kind of got that really quickly out of the way because I felt like that was probably the best thing to get out of. But now we'll get into the overall training camp vibes for each of our teams. So, like the team reports for baseball, we're going to kind of do the team reports for training camp for our teams. So, obviously, we'll go to John first
please.
because I will save James for last in terms of his Raiders. And now, John, in terms of your in terms of your Bengals, John, for training camp. Obviously they had a very massive scare with Joe Burrow going down a couple days ago
Mm-hmm.
at practice. And obviously the reports are that it sounds like it's only going to be a calf, which obviously is very fortunate because I love Joe Burrow for sure. I know we talked off the air about that kind of right as it happened. I'm like, please don't let it be an ACL. I don't know. But like I said, this Bengals team, when healthy, is going to be a top three, top four AFC team out there. I know that right now that hopefully Joe's going to get the extension soon. Of course, with Herbert and a bunch of all these guys getting the extensions for quarterbacks and stuff like that. But just overall feels about the Bengals right now, training camp wise. How do you like in the team vibes defensively? Is there any guys specifically that you're really standing out with? I know offensively, of course, Chase and Higgins, and I know they brought in Irv Smith. Mixon, of course, at running back. The offensive line, of course, is obviously has its ups and downs for sure. But let's just kind of get your overall vibes right now at Bengals training camp.
Damn it! We haven't even got through the end of training camp, and Joe Burrow got hurt. We finally addressed the offensive line, and yet somehow my voice is very hoarse, so I can't do my rant. In some way, the damn Bengals have an injury. And I'm like, homie, I saw this injury and I said, if he has a torn ACL, I'm not watching a single game. I'm skipping the season because then that team's over. I don't give a crap. I have nothing to root for. But thankfully he'll hopefully be okay. Like I think Jamar Chase and someone else said, if he's not healthy for week 1, don't play him. Yeah, smart, because you could contend a Super Bowl with him. Number 2, you're in a division with the Browns, who are probably running the ball a lot, but they might get they're maybe could be a team this year. The Ravens made a lot of additions. The Steelers, I don't know, but at least defensively, it's a good, solid division. And it's just so frustrating because we saw last year different scenarios, but the same scenario in terms of guys miss most, if not all, of training camp due to an injury. Their season is not what they want it to be. And I think that's one of my biggest concerns been looking at this, because let's say he misses the rest of training camp. That's less chemistry time on and off the field with these guys and learn different types of plays, and how maybe Jamar learned a new player or different in route or out route or different streak to help Joe Burrow, to help this team be even better than what they were last year in the previous season. I just think it's so freaking frustrating. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're already in mid-season form, and I swear to God, first of all, I'm happy Herbert got his money. I'm not gonna be mad at the guy getting his money. Joe Burrow went to a freaking Super Bowl. You just signed a couple of our other defensive ends, right, to contracts, and yet somehow they're like, let's just not pay our damn quarterback. Let's just keep Joe Mixon. Let's sign everyone else but Joe Burrow. Like, really? Like, there's no reason. You have the money, and my voice is hoarse. This is pissing me off. You have the
That's so
money.
good.
Pay Joe Burrow. And now, of course, he's not paid. He's under his rookie contract, right? 5th-year option. Wait, 21? 21, 22, 20. 5th-year option of next year. So he's still under his rookie contract. And yet, is hurt. So I think this really could hurt how much he's going to get. Do you really think they're going to give him as much as they were before he got hurt? Now, again, him just delaying paying Joe Burrow even before this is gonna destroy the quarterback market. Every contract outside of these backups is gonna destroy the market, and that's gonna be a frustrating thing for these teams. But it's very annoying seeing my team, like, literally Joe Burrow go down, because I swear to God, if he misses more than one game, I'm gonna lose my ever loving mind. I'm gonna shave my head if Joe Burrow's out for the year. I would personally shave my head live on a program and dance to one Taylor Swift song, because that is just so frustrating. It sucks. Hopefully he'll be okay. And no, James, I can't name a single Taylor Swift song, so good luck. But hopefully he'll be healthy. But I think that's really is a huge concern, because, like I said, his first year in the league, they could have made the playoffs and everything. But hopefully he'll be okay. But it's so frustrating. I'm like, really? It wasn't even a contact hit. Like, he ran out of the pocket to the right, and I guess it was like he just, part of it just froze. I don't know. But hopefully he'll be okay and our season won't be over.
And the thing about, I'm just looking at the Bengals, the first 2 games of their season, there's 2 games that are in division. So they have the Browns and they have the Ravens. So essentially, time will tell
Son of a
specifically
bitch. Are you kidding me?
if they feel about having their star quarterback, of course. Hopefully that he will be healthy by that point in time. We'll get to now Isaiah with the 49ers. Of course, he's been talking a massive game about Brock Purdy.
Purdy.
I know. Obviously, that he has the Purdy fever, for sure. Now, Nick Bosa has been, I believe, has been holding out. I think due to contracts related. Isaiah, can you let me know specifically about that? Because I think there was reports about that. And obviously that team, the NFC. I mean, there's not many other teams that I see right now out there specifically that can match with the Niners offensively and defensively. I know there's some. But just the overall vibe of the team right now. I know that you said the extra point that you're really worried about the secondary. So if you want to get into more about that, let me know about that. But yeah, just getting your overall thoughts really quickly of the training camp so far of the 49ers.
I mean, it's been great. I mean, everybody, like, you look at the quarterback competition, it's not really a competition because Purdy has been having the snaps with the ones every day he's been out there. But I mean, The elbow is holding up fine. There's no soreness, nothing like that. So, I mean, it's been good. Trey Lance has looked good in practice thus far, which I am surprised by because last year he kind of struggled at times in practice. So, I mean, I guess it's a good sign that he looks good. But, I mean, it's just for me, I know a lot of Niner fans are freaking out about, oh my God, Purdy only is completing like 68% of his passes and Lance is completing like 70% or whatever. And every day they're trying to like measure like how Purdy did, how Lance did, how Darnold did, how Brandon Allen did. It's like I'm not really keeping tabs about it. I'm just like, I want to see it in the game because, okay, yeah, you could do all that in practice, but guess what? When you go to the game, you might fail badly. So, I want to see how Purdy's elbow holds up when it comes to the game. Like when he takes a big hit or he gets sacked hard. Like that's what I want to see. Like I want to see how he holds up at that point. Like because in practice, the quarterbacks don't take a hit. They're not really like I know Cleveland Farrell, James's former defensive lineman, tried to hit Purdy in the elbow the other day, and Shanahan chewed his ass out, rightfully so. But yeah, I mean, like I guess Purdy's doing well, Lance is doing well, Darnold is all right. Even Brandon Allen. I mean, Brandon Allen today was 4 for 4 for 50 yards and a touchdown. So I mean, he was doing all right too. So I mean, the quarterbacks, I guess they're doing well. In terms of like the secondary, I am concerned about the secondary because everybody not named Charvarius Ward is unproven. Like the Niners, if you look at their second corner opposite of Charvarius Ward and their number 3 corners, it's a bunch of guys that are either unproven, a bunch of rookies, or it's a guys that are coming off like major injuries. And that's the problem with the Niners that I have. It's like you don't invest in your secondary. With John Lynch, you played safety. You know how important a secondary is to a team's success or not. When your defensive line can't get after a quarterback, when your linebackers can't do anything, they can't get after the quarterback, well, guess what? Your secondary is going to be exposed. And that's why the Niners have lost. It's because, in the Super Bowl, Richard Sherman was our best corner. Like a washed up Richard Sherman was our best corner. NFC Championship game. Our best corner was, I believe it was like Josh Norman, a washed up Josh Norman. He was number 1. Like, how is that even possible? Like, you stack the defensive line, you stack the linebackers, but for the secondary, it just seems like you get scrap heaps to put on your secondary and expect the D line and the linebackers to just wreak havoc and the secondary is not important. Like that's why they always lose. And that's what just really frustrates me about the Niners. It's not the quarterbacks. It's that they just don't spend in the secondary. You could have gotten Marcus Peters, who eventually went to the Raiders. You could have gotten someone else. You could have gotten like someone else if you really wanted to be cheap. There's still options available, but you just don't do it because you just like, well, we want to be cheap in the secondary. Like it just makes no sense. And that's why, for me, I'm concerned about the secondary because right now, like, I'm not concerned about the NFC West. I'm not really concerned about a lot of the NFC. It's when you play guys like Mahomes, you play guys like Allen, you play guys like Burrow, guys that can actually throw the football, and teams that have great offensive lines to protect their quarterback. Well, then Josh Allen's going to shred our secondary. Patrick Mahomes is going to shred our secondary. Joe Burrow is going to shred our secondary. So that's why I'm concerned about the Niners secondary. I want them to get more pieces in the secondary to bolster it. But, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I mean, Niners camp has been great so far, but I want to see what happens in the game. Like I want to see how Purdy's elbow actually holds up and how Lance does come game time.
Well, Isaiah, the really good thing about your secondaries, they're not going to have to, before their bye week, the quarterbacks they're going to have to go through specifically. I mean, I look at it right now, I'm just like, I don't think the secondary is really going to have to do much. I mean, you look at it, Pittsburgh week 1, Kenny Pickett. Week 2, Matthew Stafford. Week 3, Daniel Jones. Week 4, Colt McCoy if Kyler Murray's not back. Week 5, was it 5, Dak Prescott, then Deshaun Watson, then Kirk Cousins, and then Joe Burrow. So, I mean, you look at it on paper, right? And I'm just like, is there any quarterback? I mean, maybe Dak. I mean, obviously Joe Burrow is elite, right? Kenny Pickett, he's a young kid, but you don't know what he's going to be down the road. I mean, he has promise. Daniel Jones, turnover machine. That probably a good overall, thing for you guys. And then Cardinals. I mean, no Kyler Murray. I mean, Kyler Murray is small, but you guys have faced the Cardinals really well too in the past. So, I mean, yes, obviously that the defense really that secondary could be a concern, but you guys just looking at right now are pretty favorable before the bye. So at least that should give you a little bit of hope there. In terms of the Patriots, and I know that obviously Laura was talking with you about the Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots right now, their schedule is absolutely brutal. It's just there's really just right now specifically. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can specifically, but let's be all real. They're going to be probably in last again. Just their schedule on paper. But I was able to be at training camp on Sunday. I should have had my roster with me, kind of show you guys pretty much the whole entire list, top to bottom. I had my list and stuff. I actually won some sunglasses too when I was there, so I was able to do pretty good there. Really good day. Kind of complete my mini vacation weekend. So that was a really good treat for me. But just being there specifically and kind of the overall feel with the team is, Mac Jones, of course, this is a make or break year, right? For this young kid. Obviously I didn't really watch a lot of the team drills, but I did get the chance to see some of the receivers out there. Juju Smith-Schuster's done really good so far in this camp. Tyquan Thornton is one guy specifically that they drafted a couple years ago that Bailey Zappi actually worked really good with, but Mac Jones and him really haven't found that connection, and I don't think specifically that Tyquan Thornton's not going to be taking over Demario Douglas' spot. Demario Douglas, guys, if you haven't been on the hype train yet, you should be probably on it pretty soon. This is a small receiver, a guy like Bill Belichick loves. He's from Liberty, so he's obviously from a school kind of that's not really well known, but he's really quick and he's elusive. And I know that the Patriots really kind of need some game breakers specifically. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins not still coming here. I don't understand why. He went to a team in Tennessee. Of course, he went to Buffalo or Kansas City. I could take the leave, but obviously you got him or something like that would have been massive. But it is what it is. But just on paper right now, the defense looks. The defense is definitely going to have some really strong spurts for sure. Matthew Judon today just got announced that he got his contract readjusted, which is absolutely massive. I know that he's been sitting out some practices and he hasn't been doing as much. Ramondre Stevenson really hasn't done as much too. But the team right now, I think you look at it right now, right? They, like I said, they're probably in last, but I think this team right now, you move on from Matt Patricia, right? And apparently right now the offense of continuity, the players are having more fun out there. Last year, it just was a whole-on mess. Guys were just chewing each other out. I'm just like, well, that's what happens when you put a defensive coordinator essentially calling your plays. And Bill Belichick, of course, does not call plays. He's not an offensive-minded type coach. He's a defensive-minded type coach. And, of course, he's starting to lose his defensive-minded type aura. So you have to bring somebody with familiarity. That's Bill O'Brien. Who does Mac Jones is familiar with? Bill O'Brien from Alabama. So, obviously, hopefully that could be able to help him possibly for his make or break type year. So those are all of our training camp overall reports. Now, before we go into some college football stuff specifically, I do want to get into James. Looks like you have something, so by all means, go ahead.
Did you want me to do the Raiders? It's really bad stuff, but it's
and as bad as the Patriots receiving core. But I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Come on, James. The entertaining part is now. Come on, man.
James. Before I was going to move on, I really apologize, James, for about to skip you. I really didn't want to have that happen, but I'll give you to save the best for last. For your your Vegas Raiders, obviously now with Jimmy G at the helm, and
it's okay. They're playing like they're in Oakland.
How's your overall feel, James? The vibes for our training camp. Any type of positive news that you think about? You're looking at right now. Anything specific that might maybe give you some hope? I'll let you take it from here.
No. To all those questions, no. I read something right now. Hunter Renfrow, remember he had a horrible last year. He was out with a concussion most of the year. Had a big fumble to help the Cardinals win in that comeback victory in week 2. He mentioned something saying that last season left a bad taste in his mouth. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, mine too. And everybody. That was with the Raiders last year. So we're trying to get better. But The attention right now is mostly with Jimmy G at practice. But then the Raider defense, it's improved in training camp so far. But you know why that is? Jimmy G on Friday threw 4 interceptions to Raider defensive players. So the defense is getting better, but Jimmy G is not. And so you take the good and the bad, and you still have a lot of bad there. So that's really, really bad when you think about it. Let's see what else. So the Raiders want Josh Jacobs to come back and talk about a contract, but for Josh's sake, just for his sake, just talking about him, he shouldn't, because they're going to lowball him. They're going to try to get him in before the season starts, and he should not even do that. So that's a big loss when you think about it. We have a lot of young players just running back there, and they're not as experienced as Jacobs. So that's a big loss there. When the passing isn't going well, you rely on your run, but your best runner isn't there. That's a recipe for disaster. I think the Raider defense want to play the Raider offense every week in the season. I think that would be an awesome win for the Raider defense. One of our best corners, Brandon Faison, was carted off the field a couple of days ago in an apparent leg injury.
Oh, man.
So they're going to find out how bad it's going to be. Another thing about Jimmy G, him and Max Crosby got into it, I think Thursday, it was. Just about, how probably bad Jimmy G throws. That's all I could think of. Max Crosby had to do a lap, but Jimmy G didn't have to. I felt like both players should have had equal punishment. But, it's amazing, though. All these stories are coming out, and the titles are like, oh, yeah, the Raider defense has been a revelation through the first 6 practices. That's because Jimmy G keeps throwing the interceptions. So it's amazing to me how these days are going. The Raiders can't say it themselves, but it's a reconstruction, but they're doing it year by year. So even though they're making some big splashes, or they did, slowly they're tearing it down, and you could tell how young the team is now. They do have 3 players in the top 100, in the top 20, but one isn't even there, Jacob. So that's interesting to note. Let's see, what else? Nate Hobbs is, the defense is doing well. Marcus Peters, I think, thought that the Raiders were still in Oakland. He's an Oakland man. I guess he got the note to fly to Vegas if he wanted to play for the Raiders. So he's with the Raiders now. And I think that's going to be a total just a blow up. I mean, the first year with Marshawn Lynch was all great and everything. But the second year, he just just acted crazy. And Marcus Peters has that track record. Everywhere he's been, he's always had fights with teammates, fights with the referees, fights with the opponents, throwing flags into the crowd like he did in New Jersey, trying to fight fans. So he fits the Raiders very well in that sense. So he always wanted to play for the Raiders in Oakland, but he had to go to Las Vegas. And again, he fits the team very well. It is really sad when you think about it. Nothing against the Patriots or whatever, but Brian Hoyer is the best quarterback looking into this training camp so far, not Jimmy G. That's really bad.
Or the destroyer.
Former Niner, too. Former Niner.
That's right. Yeah. And Jimmy G. So it's all a circle.
Yeah.
That's right. So there was one positive, and I think it always goes into the past, I guess, with the Raiders. But they did a redraft of the 2018 NFL draft. Yay. Their left tackle, Colton Miller, went number 6. So I think that's something to hang a banner up for coming up this season. I know we're going to do predictions, but I saw that the Raiders we're slated to go 3-14, and that makes me not want to go out and get the YouTube package. The preseason will come up August 13th against the 49ers in Las Vegas. It'll be all 49er crowd. And then the Raiders go to LA, where they should have been able to move the next week. And then they go to Arlington to face the Cowboys. And then I believe it is September 10th. They start they start in Denver. So I'm not really looking forward to the season. It's based on the quarterback we have. It's almost feeling like, hey, we should have kept Carr and just paid him. That would have hurt. Well, Jacobs was not even there, so it's just like, what the hell? You could have just kept him away. But this week was more about what Jimmy G cannot do and the defense benefiting on it, which is going to be really bad if that happens in the regular season. It could be a thing where the Raiders go 3-0 in preseason and go 1-16 in the regular season. It might happen. They might be really bad. So, if you know what, since all those people that write and act in Hollywood shows and Netflix are on strike, the number one comedy this fall will be the Las Vegas Raiders. So check them out this fall.
All right. Before we get to John, James, obviously I know this is mad early, but do you feel like there could be a scenario where Davante Adams requests out?
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I'm thinking myself right now specifically. I know, Isaiah, don't get too excited when I say this. I don't want this to happen because it'd be my division. But what if Davante Adams goes to reunite back with Aaron Rodgers? And you have that overall receiving core of Garrett Wilson, Adams, and essentially it would be, instead of the Green Bay Packers, it'd be the Green Bay Jets. Because essentially they bring pretty much everybody from Green Bay over to New York. They already have Cobb there. They already have Rodgers there. Might as well bring the whole band back together on offense while you're at it. So, I just think specifically – and Jimmy G is throwing to more guys in the defense than he's throwing a guy like an all-pro receiver. I just don't know what to say from there because I really don't. But
I think before the deadline, that's going to happen. I really do. And because he makes so much money, especially in the years coming up, I don't think the Jets would have to give up much, honestly, pick-wise. So I predict that's one of the things that are going to happen. And then you're going to see a lot of empty seats whenever the fans from other teams will come and invade the stadium for sure.
All right, and John, what were you going to say too? Because I know you had something that you wanted to mention.
No, just about Davante Adams. Definitely before the deadline, those talks will come up, and people in New Jersey or New York should be getting those number 17 Jets jerseys really soon.
Right. But, John, did you have something else you wanted to say, too?
James, I want to formally apologize, even though I'm not a Raiders fan, because I'm going to laugh because, I don't know. From a pure football decision perspective, what was the point of trading away a guy that had the same talent and ability, get the same guy that has the same talent and ability, who – the guy last year helped Davante Adams get over 100 receptions, 15 touchdowns, and 4,482 yards. That doesn't make sense. But I think if you trade Davante Adams, when you do, just cancel the damn season. Don't even show up to practice because, and I'm not just saying this not just to Troy. It gives me great joy to Troy you sometimes, but I think it's frustrating for Raiders fans out there because somehow you're too poor to let go Josh McDaniels, and yet you were able to trade for Davante Adams, and now you'll be able to trade him away right before the trade deadline ends. And it's just so miserable because why bring in Jimmy Garoppolo? You already have Tom Brady being involved in the team like he was before when he destroyed him in 2002 with the Tuck rule. It doesn't make sense, in any perspective. But honestly, I hope the Raiders. Now, if this is the way to get McDaniels out is to lose, then I hope they lose to get him out and get someone in there because eventually McDaniels is going to have to go, whether it's next year or the year after. Like, I don't think, James, they're the worst team. I think Arizona's number one. And then the Raiders would probably be number two. And number three would probably be another team like the NFC. But I'm sorry, man. That's rough because you're throwing 4 picks in training camp. You're looking worse than Baker Mayfield in training camp. Like, do you know how bad that has to be? Like, Baker is as good as Isaiah against me in Madden or NCAA football. Like, he's going to get his ass kicked, and it's just crazy, man. But I feel bad for Raiders fans. I really do, because they just can't seem to catch a break.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we get to college football, we're going to quickly into really quickly our division picks. So with that being said, guys, because we do have John, Isaiah, and James here, we're going to go start with the AFC East because obviously, obviously the Patriots obviously want to get kind of over with first because I know that they're not going to be in the top spots because one, their schedule is brutal. And 2, obviously, they had probably the worst quarterback in the division. Mac Jones. I know that Mac Jones. I think has ability, but you look at the other ones, he's not even close to. But for me specifically, I thought the Buffalo Bills winning this division specifically. I know that obviously they've had the turmoil in this offseason specifically, but I know that their defense obviously has had some hiccups in the past for sure. But they kept Matt Milano, I believe, which was a very good move specifically for their defense. And of course, Allen is still really, coming into his own for sure. I know that Gabe Davis is still around for sure there. So I'm going to have them at 1. I'm going to have the Dolphins at 2 and then the Jets at 3. I still look at coaching, right? And I think that it's going to take a little bit for the Jets to kind of get acclimated right away, with Aaron Rodgers and Gang Green. But the defense specifically, you look at the defense between the Patriots and the Jets defenses, I think they're fairly similar, but the quarterbacks is just exponentially different. So I have them in third and then I have the Patriots in last. So I'll start with John, your AFC winner for the AFC East.
Ben, you might as well contact Motel 6 because that's where the Patriots are going to be in January. My biggest concern for the Patriots is you're 25 and 25. Again, I'm not going to go into huge takes. We got 4 people. 25 and 25. Don't have a number 1 receiver. And you're in a division with Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, who were the best receiving duo in the NFL last year.
Right.
If Tua's healthy, I have Miami at number 2, Buffalo number 1. The Jets number 3, and the Patriots number 4. I think the Jets to me are the most overhyped team. Aaron Rodgers is not better than Josh Allen, and if Tua can stay healthy and extend those 6-7 games he had last year, he's not better than Tua. Like I get all time. I don't know what there is with the ass kicking with Rodgers. I haven't seen a single person be honest about it. The Jets, if they'd be lucky to make the playoffs, and if they do, they're not getting a playoff win. I'm sorry. They're not beating Mahomes. They're not beating anyone. I would only have Patriots at number 4 because without having to say DeAndre Hopkins, that to me could have changed their not necessarily season for going 4-13 and 5-12 to a 10-7, but he could have contended for the playoffs potentially because having that veteran guy is a big help because you got your better offensive coordinator. But unfortunately, like I said, Bill Belichick just doesn't know what he's doing. I think eventually he's gonna have to go.
All right, James, your AFC's prediction.
I agree with you, Ben, how it's going to go. Buffalo may have a little slippage, and they might have some traffic in the rearview mirror with the Dolphins and the Jets right there. But, yeah, I agree with the way it's going to go, how you said, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets, and then the Patriots. I'm anxious to see how the Jets come out. And if they get Dalvin Cook, they'll even be they'll be closer to the Dolphins than what I have them now. I mean, I think it's all driven. The league is quarterback driven, right? But this division is quarterback driven. I think more, or now the attention's more on this division quarterback wise, just because if Tua is hurt, what do you have left? And then with Rodgers, he has to ball out. Allen, the pressure's all on him. He's the Madden cover guy. He's bound to have a slump year. It's just bound to happen. I think it's going to happen this year, but I think they'll win enough games to win the East. But with the Patriots, it's almost a feeling like, hey, with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, it's almost a feeling like if you could get someone better, get rid of both guys. But they don't have that quarterback yet that they can rely on, and it's going to be a year of transition. I mean, last year was, but this year is going to be even more of a year in transition for the Patriots. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Buffalo.
Then Isaiah, you probably have the craziest one of all of us.
Easy. Jets. Easy. Jets. Jets. Fly, Jets. Fly.
Bullshit.
That's the prediction right there,
Bullshit.
man.
Stop
You know
licking Aaron
what?
Rodgers' balls and tell the truth.
Hey, I believe in Aaron Rodgers. He will show this year
All right.
that he's the second best quarterback in the entire NFL. I think
What
the Jets
the
aren't
fuck?
done. Hey, the Jets
Seriously?
aren't done.
Hey.
He's gonna get Dalvin Cook. They might probably gonna get Devontae Adams at the trade deadline. In terms of the other teams, Buffalo number 2, Dolphins number 3, because I don't think Tua's gonna stay healthy. That's the thing. And Tua is one hit away from retirement, just like Matthew Stafford. If he suffers another concussion, I think he's gonna have to retire. And then, sadly, Ben, your Patriots will be
It's all good.
last. And here's my bold prediction on the Patriots. I think New England starts 1-7 because that schedule, that first 8 games is rough, man. It's extremely rough. And I think Bailey Zappi will take over for Mac Jones when you're 1-7. Because if you're 1-7, right, you're either going to have to fire the coach, which I don't think you're going to get rid of Belichick mid-season because that's too drastic of a move. But it's going to prompt the quarterback change. And that's why I agree with you that this is Mac Jones' biggest year. Because if Mac Jones balls out, the Patriots maybe have a chance in some of these games early on. But if, let's say, he just completely stinks it up, there's no way you're not going like 0-8 or 1-7 because you have to compete with the Saints. You have the Jets twice, I believe, the Bills a couple of times,
Twice.
the Dolphins once, the Cowboys.
Yep.
That's why Mac Jones has to ball out, not just for himself. He has to ball out for the team. So yeah, give me the Jets. But crazy prediction. I think that Zappi takes over for Jones middle of the season because New England's 1-7 and they need to try to do something to turn their season around.
If Rodgers is so damn good, why the hell does he need all the help from the freaking West Coast all the way to the East Coast? If he's so damn good, you're telling me he's better than Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. When's the last time he went to a Super Bowl?
Hell yes, he's
The
better
last
than Josh
time,
Allen.
the last time
Listen.
Rodgers went to a Super Bowl, Blockbuster was freaking relevant. Like, there's no way in hell you're telling me if he's that good, he needs all the farm and needs all the help. If he's so good, he doesn't need all the help that he has. Stop the garbage.
Well,
Ridiculous.
you guys can take it off the air for that specifically. But AFC North now. Those predictions for me specifically, and John, you're gonna love me for this one, but I got the Bengals leading the division, and I think on paper, still that they have the best team. I know that obviously with Burrow's health, it could be in question kind of to start, but Lamar Jackson, that Baltimore team, I'm not still believe in Lamar Jackson's arm ability. Plus, I just don't know about that new coaching philosophy that they have there. Another thing too, Harbaugh's a great coach, but how consistent has he been the last couple of years? He's had a lot of questionable overall moves and late game execution that I've been seeing. The Steelers with Pickett, I know they're a young team. They got a really good defense when healthy, but TJ Watt's the main catalyst there. If TJ Watt's out there, that defense flies. If he's not around, then it's average. And then the Browns with Deshaun Watson, it's just they have some pieces there, but I just don't really know that overall cohesion, right? It's just you look at kind of the overall teams, the other ones out there in that division, and it's just like okay, Deshaun Watson last year wasn't that great, ever kind of since he came back. Maybe obviously he can kind of get back on track and he could surprise me, but I could see them probably being at 7, 10, 8, 9 at best, possibly. So I got the Bengals around 12-5. I'd probably say the Ravens at like 10-7, the Steelers at 9-8, and then probably like the Browns at like 8-9, something like that. But I'll go to you, James. The AFC North. Who's your prediction for that division?
Well, I think the Bengals are going to struggle, but they'll still win the division. When you lose your great backup running back like P-Line, I mean, when you think about it, he got them some clutch first downs on third down. He's a runner up the middle. I think they're going to miss that. They're going to try to replace that, but that's very, very tough to do. And then the Joe Mixon situation, he just has to stay out of trouble, stay out of the limelight, just focus on football. And then they have to keep Joe Burrow upright. It feels like I've been saying that forever in Joe Burrow's career so far with the Bengals, but it's certainly true. They did go out and get offensive line help the last couple of years, but the problem still consists of him going down. I mean, this year in training camp, it was by himself. So, but then you have to limit his hurries, his sacks, his hits. That's going to be the big thing. You have a great offensive core with the receiving core there and the tight end. That's not going to be around too much longer, though, because free agency will come and eventually those guys will get paid, but maybe not by the Bengals, as they're one of the notoriously cheap franchises. The Brown family does not pay anyone, but they're going to pay Burrow eventually. But everybody else, they're going to try to get cheaper and younger. Second, I get, it's pretty much the Bengals and everybody else. And they're all fighting for second place and maybe not for a wild card spot either. To me, it's like a mix of the last three. Maybe the Ravens and Odell with Lamar can do well. But I feel like their defense, they have to get a little better. And that's going to be the big key. Maybe they go second. The Steelers and Browns, they're two interesting teams because a lot has to happen right for those teams to do well. For me, I'm gonna say the Browns finished third. They had, like you mentioned, Ben. They have some great pieces. They all have to just fit together well. The defense is kind of limited now. It's basically Myles Garrett and some other young guys. Offensively, you're highly relied on Nick Chubb, but that's really it on the rushing game. You have Amari Cooper sometimes that has butterfingers and stone hands, but he balled out somewhat last year. Deshaun Watson with a full season under him, as long as he stays out of, massage parlors and trouble, I think he'll be fine. With the whole season there, I think he'll do better. And then I know they added some other receiving help, but I think they're going to be a step down from the Ravens. And then the Steelers, Kenny Pickett, he's still not the guy yet. Maybe he'll progress somewhat more. And I love what you said, Ben, because I agree with the same thing. I was going to say the same thing about the Steeler defense. They go as TJ Watt goes. You saw when he was out, they were out. When he was in, they were in games. But they do still have Michael Fitzpatrick. He's been known as a great leader. You saw right away when he got the hell out of Miami in 2019, he really got to show what he can do. And so he's been good. They got some good off defensive, young talent, but all just has to blend together. Their running game has to be better. It's just all about their quarterback situation with Kenny Pickett. He's just got to step up, and if he does, he might shock some people, but not so much the Steelers. So I'm going to go with the Bengals.
All right, we'll go to Isaiah for the AFC North. Who is your division pick for this division?
You ready for another surprise?
Well,
The
you always give
Pittsburgh-
surprises as it is.
Don't
The
you fucking dare.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me
Oh.
Pittsburgh to win this division, and here's why.
All
Let's
right,
talk about the
all right.
Bengals. I think there could be a situation where Joe Burrow sits out the first 5 games or he sits out the season. Because, like James mentioned,
Damn it,
Mike
don't jinx our
Brown-
season, you son of a bitch.
Because here's why. Mike Brown is the cheapest owner in the NFL. And there hasn't been any rumors or leaks that they're even talking to Joe Burrow. So if he's gonna sit out training camp, I've told Joe Burrow this, you don't play until you get that new contract. Because you guys know football, man. Football is a contact sport. You can easily rip an ACL or rip an Achilles like in practice or during the season. And I don't know. I just have this feeling until Mike Brown proves me wrong that he's going to go and pay Joe Burrow. I just haven't seen it yet. And I could see a situation where he cheapens out and like, hey, I'm not going to give you that $60+ million contract or whatever. And he's going to sit out because of it. And then you look at the other guys on the Bengals. James mentioned Joe Mixon. Is he going to get in trouble? He has to stay out of trouble. He's been in the NFL for how long? 6 years? He's never stayed out of trouble. So I don't think he will. And then you just look at the rest of this division, man. The Browns are not a great team, like Christy mentioned. They have Watson, but it just seems like their defense is old and over the edge. The Ravens, I agree with you, Ben. I think that the hiring of Todd Monken does not make any sense whatsoever. Todd Monken was known as a guy that loved to throw the football down the field. What is Lamar Jackson's biggest weakness? Throwing the football. So you hire a guy that loves to do the weakness of Lamar Jackson. It just doesn't make any sense. He shouldn't have been hired to begin with. I don't know what John Harbaugh was doing in that regards. I guess they're trying to maybe help Lamar with getting better as a passer or something like that. I mean, but then you added Odell, who he hasn't played in a couple of years. He just seems like he's washed up. And then the defense, remember, they also lost Calais Campbell. That's a big loss for the Baltimore Ravens, and he was a big catalyst for their defense. And I think their defense just looks old and washed up as well. But then you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do not sleep on Darnell Washington. That guy has been an absolute stud right now in practice. He hasn't been like nobody on the Steelers has been able to cover him. The guy's 6'9". He weighs 280 pounds, and he's making cuts and moves like Travis Kelce and George Kittle. I mean, it's crazy what he's doing out there on the football field. And if he can emerge as a weapon, George Pickens has looked outstanding for the Steelers. I think Najee Harris is going to continue to be a great back. And then you look at that defense. I agree with you guys. The defense goes as TJ Watt goes. And you have TJ Watt there. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick there as well. Due to the uncertainties of the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns, give me Pittsburgh. And I think Kenny Pickett's going to continue to shine or get better. And I think he's going to have his breakout year this year for Pittsburgh.
Before we get to John, just want to quickly say thank you, Christy, for joining us. I really appreciate it. She says, hello, guys. She says Bengals are her pick, which I think is a very valid pick for sure. She also said that Joe Burrow will be fine. And I think, time will tell specifically in terms of, kind of his diagnostic. Where they're going to play it safe? Do they kind of bring him back? We'll kind of see about that. John, obviously the Bengal fan himself. Do you think that the Bengals have it in them to win the division? I know. Don't worry about Isaiah trying to jinx you, because I know for the Steelers' sake, hey, Isaiah, I love your hot take for sure about that division. But with that being said, John, what's your overall feeling?
Now that Isaiah jinxed the Steelers, Kenny Pickett's going to throw for Peyton Manning's interception record this year, probably go for 25. Maybe he'll have a Jameis Winston 30 for 30 ESPN special this year. No, I'm just kidding. The Steelers, like I said, Kenny Pickett, he didn't give me much out of all last year. And I think the game was against Baltimore where they lost. He threw like a key interception late in that game. But I think for Baltimore also, like I said, Lamar is getting better as a passer, but not as quickly as they need him to be. You're in a division with the Browns and Watson where Watson has a full season under his belt. Hopefully nothing else is under. And I think when you're looking at like Amari Cooper, right? He's a guy that can get you 100 receptions and 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. Then very quickly he turns back to an injury-prone guy for the next couple of seasons. So it's like you don't know what type of player you're going to get out of Amari Cooper. Is it the Pro Bowl version? Or is it the 2017, 2018 version in Oakland where he's playing so up and down and gets you 4 receptions for 20 yards? I'll still pick my Bengals to win, and hopefully, like I said, continuously say again, I really hope Joe Burrow's injury is not significant, but you do not rush it back. But I agree. Part I think what Isaiah said is with Mike Brown being cheap, I'm afraid they're going to use that as ammunition to not pay him as much as he deserves to get paid because Joe Burrow is the first Bengals player to reignite the city for the Bengals and for what future other players to potentially want to come to this team because they're now, right now, in a winning organization because of Joe Burrow. Like Zach Taylor, I'm not a fan of him. He's a byproduct of Joe Burrow. Take Joe Burrow out, he's not in the Super Bowl. But hopefully he'll be okay. I picked the Bengals to win a division. I think Baltimore goes second. I would say the Browns get third and Steelers go fourth. I don't know. It just seems Kenny Pickett to me seems like a weird quarterback. Just as a quarterback, I just don't see him and Najee Harris very matching on the field. And like I said, George Pickens is a phenomenal receiver. When you don't have that type of caliber quarterback, you see how that affects the players around you. And I don't think Kenny Pickett can compete with Lamar with his mobility alone. With Deshaun, hopefully, maybe he can be turned to his former self in 2020 before the allegations. Like, I don't know. Like, we don't know what he's going to do. Hopefully, I can go to that game when they play Houston because I'll be booing him out the wazoo. But, like I said, I picked the Bengals to win the division. But don't rush Joe Burrow back because this could risk his health for his career, but more importantly, whenever he's done playing football.
Okay, let's go to the AFC West. This is obviously one of the most highly prolific divisions that, of course, we thought from last year. I know that there was a lot of up and down with that division for sure. But obviously, the Broncos getting in Sean Payton after they tried to bring in Nathaniel Hackett, which was a total disaster last year. You have the Chargers, who, of course, they made some moves last year. Of course, they brought in J.C. Jackson. They had Kyle Van Noy last year. Of course, is now in Baltimore. Journeyman for sure. Patriots legend, by the way. And then, of course, you have Herbert there, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, 2 really good receivers. And then, of course, you have the Chiefs, Super Bowl champs, who just won against the Eagles this past year. You have arguably probably the best quarterback in football now, in Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid, of course, offensive masterminded coach. And then you have the Raiders, which is the team that James supports. Sorry, James. I try to be. Yeah, with Josh McDaniels and Devontae Adams, probably the best receiver in football, with Jimmy Garoppolo, and so obviously the Raiders as well. So without further ado, I will go to James first because I feel like James will go to start off. So James, AFC West, who do you have winning this division?
Raiders. Come on, James.
If this was 2002, I would say the Raiders, but this is 2023. I still think Kansas City still has the firepower, the will, the desire. They got to figure about the defense, with the veterans they have, if they're going to pay them or not. I know that Chris Jones, I know he wants to get paid, but they're having a hard time getting that done. So the defense might suffer just a little bit, being young and all. I don't think things will be as easy for them, let's just say, but I still think they win the division there. The Broncos, I feel like it's all on Russell Wilson. It's all on Sean Payton. And then if it doesn't work out, they either pay him off and get rid of Russell Wilson or they keep him around still. That's a lot of money Walmart has to swallow, but they can. I think Denver will improve just a bit. I really do. I really think they improve. Their defense will be their meal ticket, but the offense should be better. If not, you have a repeat of last year. Not as bad, though, hopefully. For that team that plays up north, I don't even want to say their name, but yeah, the C words who left San Diego. They got Herbert paid, and that was their big thing that they needed to do. They fought with Eckler for him to get paid. They have wide receivers, 2 old ones, and then 2, young ones, including that rookie who from Tennessee. They're expecting big things from him because of those injuries. But the defense, they've kind of mixed in old with young, and it hasn't really worked out. So maybe they take a step down this year. Instead of being one of the wild cards, I don't think that team up there will be any good. But they'll be better than the Las Vegas Raiders, who I talked about earlier, where if our quarterback is throwing to our defense in training camp, that means terribleness will happen right away. And then during the season, Adams might get traded. Jacobs might not even play it down for the Raiders this year. I'm prepared for a trade and someone to pay him somewhere else. I don't know where that'll be, but I have to think that situation will go into the season with Josh Jacobs and the Raiders. Their defense, they'll be terrible again like they've been for the last, since 2016, last winning, not winning season, but the last really good defensive season. So I think the Raiders are going to be last, and then, I still think the Chiefs will win that AFC West.
All right, John, your prediction for the AFC West.
I think the Broncos are going to be the most, to me, not the most shocking, but the most underperforming team, top 5, top 6 most underperforming team this year. Tim Patrick has a torn ACL. That was supposed to be a high hope for this year. Jared
Another
Judy,
year of him.
it's a very unfortunate.
Sucks.
And Gordon Sutton and Jared Judy eventually have to step up because these are guys that are not solidified number 1 receivers. And the good, even though I hate Kansas City as a team, not the people as people, but as players, because I want them to lose and make my team's season much easier. But the good thing, or the thing that Kansas City's been able to do is evenly distribute the football along your offensive players so you're not heavily reliant on 1 or 2 people. And that's what I think Denver did in the past. Obviously, with Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, but that's going to be their huge issue. It's going to be Jared Judy and Courtland Sutton. I don't think they can perform. You lost Noah Fant 2 years ago, or this past season, to the trade with Russell Wilson. To me, it seems like you said it's a lot heavily on Wilson. I feel like mentally he was in the worst situation last year. Again, I don't know. I don't have any proof of it. It's just the way he acted on the field just seems so odd. Like he just wasn't that same guy, and I don't know how you fix that in an entire offseason if there was anything going on. But I have Kansas City winning it. I think Chargers go number 2, but I think it's a make it or break it year for this team because you pay Herbert. You have a head coach who should already be gone. You blew a 27-0 lead in the playoffs to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then I'll have Broncos number 3, Raiders number 4. I think what the Raiders need to do, change positions, right? Make some of those defensive players Jimmy Garoppolo's new receivers, and Jimmy Garoppolo would be the best quarterback in the division this year and in the NFL. I said Raiders number 4, Broncos number 3. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in that division still because I don't trust Courtland Sutton and Jared Judy. They're not going to outperform Travis Kelce or the Chiefs' offensive weapons, but Chiefs are going to win that division. And if anyone is doubting him, now I know Patrick Mahomes committed to Texas sin. You don't put ketchup on your steak, but you can't doubt them. Like they just won a Super Bowl, and I think they're not stopping anytime soon.
I'll go last, Isaiah, for the AFC's what we're doing now, West. So Isaiah, I'll take it to you, my friend. Who do you got winning the AFC West?
I think that in the entire AFC, this is going to be the division that goes down to the wire, and it's going to be one of the hottest races in the entire season. And it's going to come down to like the final couple of weeks. And I think it's going to come down to that Christmas. I believe they play Christmas, the Chiefs and the Broncos game.
No, the Raiders.
What's that?
It's Chiefs and Raiders on Christmas.
Okay, so Chiefs and Raiders on Christmas, but it's going to come down to the final weeks. Give me that. It's going to be tough. Give me Denver. I believe in Denver. I believe in Sean Payton. I think that out of all the offseason
What the hell?
I think that out of all the offseason moves that was made, I think that the Broncos trading for Sean Payton was the biggest of them all. Like
No. You're telling me Russell Wilson is going to outperform Patrick Mahomes? You need to be drug tested. That's
No, he doesn't
ridiculous.
need to be outperform Patrick Mahomes. You know what's going to outperform the Chiefs? It's going to be Sean Payton. He will out-coach Andy Reid. That's what's going to happen. I think right now, if you look at right now, the Denver Broncos, Nathaniel Hackett could not talk my preschool team. I mean, that guy was a joke last year. And the thing is that, you know, John mentioned Russell Wilson. Why was he in a bad mood? The reason why he was in a bad mood was because Nathaniel Hackett was hired primarily because the Denver Broncos thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers. That's the reason why. And then they struck out on Aaron Rodgers, and then they went and got Russell Wilson, which totally was not a good fit with Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett, let's face it, did not want to coach Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson did not want Nathaniel Hackett as his head coach. It was like that. It was like the Wizards getting Scott Brooks to try to lure Kevin Durant, and then Durant saying no, and end up being stuck with Scott Brooks in a really lose-lose situation. I think that Sean Payton is going to have Russell Wilson back to the Russell Wilson of old. I think that they added Samaje Perine, didn't they? In the offseason,
Yes.
I'm guessing. Yeah, they added Samaje Perine. Yep, they beefed up the offensive line with Mike McGlinchey, among others. I mean, the defense got better with Frank Clark and Alex Kerr as well. But this is going to come down to the final 2 weeks. This is going to be must-watch TV for sure when the Broncos and Chiefs play, because you have two outstanding offensive coaches, Sean Payton and Andy Reid, going at it. Russell Wilson versus Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs, Broncos, man. Put those two games on national TV every single time they play. As far as the rest of the division, Chargers will be in third. Brandon Staley should have been fired after that 27-0 blown lead. And the Raiders, Sally James, the Raiders will be fourth. And I think this is the year McDaniels gets fired.
And you also have the Chiefs at 2.
Chiefs at 2,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, for the AFC West, I'm going to go with Kansas City. I just really can't, go against Patrick Mahomes right now. For that overall division, like Christy mentioned, and Christy, like I said, appreciate your comments. She said the Chiefs are winning the West. She said Sean Payton is not going to out-coach Andy Reid. That's impossible. And then the Broncos selling for Russell was because Aaron Rodgers did not want to go to Denver. I'll say this specifically about the Broncos. Remember when people were saying stop putting Broncos games on national television? Remember that last year? We got to a point where they were always on national television, and people were like, stop putting it. I remember that game against the Colts where the Niners and the Colts, it was just complete. I mean, I love football. I love watching football, but my goodness, I don't even know if it was football by the point of that end of that game. But with that being said, though, I really think now with the Broncos, getting Sean Payton, like you mentioned, Isaiah, is going to be really good. But, just talent-wise specifically, I agree with John. Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, I don't know specifically who's going to be like their true one for Russell Wilson. I really don't. They're tight ends. I mean, I really, really don't kind of know. Their offensive line, too. I mean, is there really much offensive line help that essentially could really protect Wilson? He obviously, with his overall age and stuff, you don't want him running around day and night. And I mean, he's taken a ton of sacks the last couple of years. I mean, you obviously remember his overall telling Seattle, about his overall concern about his sack usage. And then the defense for Denver, of course, they have Surtain. Their secondary, I think, is going to be solid, but I just don't know about the rest of their defense. So I'm going to have them at 2. Like I said, with the Chiefs, Their defense obviously has some suspect areas. I know that without Chris Jones getting paid, that's going to be massive. But I look at coaching, right? And Andy Reid, you start with him at the top. Then you have Sean Payton, Brandon Staley. Is that? Well, I mean, he's not. He should really be a third, but it's really because of Justin Herbert. And then you had the Raiders at 4. To finish off that overall division. I know I feel like we're just putting James down for the Raiders at last. But hey, James, I was the Patriots. My team was the last for all of it, so I feel the overall feeling. But and by the way, we play each other at some point during the season, so we'll have fun of that too. But yeah, I have the Chiefs at 1, Broncos at 2. The Chargers at 3. I think the Chargers are going to be a really good team, but I feel like Denver is going to overtake them this year. And then I have the Raiders at 4. All right, so let's finish up really quick for our predictions. We are going to say the NFC for Sunday's show. So if you guys are not on Sunday's show, feel free to put that stuff in off the air, and I'll put your predictions on for the Sunday show. But to save some time, we obviously have one more thing in the NFL we want to get into before we probably conclude really quickly. We'll get into that college bowl stuff I know Isaiah want to talk about. But let's go to the AFC South. Now, at this one specifically, I think this could be the first overall division we should be all kind of agreed with, unless there's something crazy. I know even with Isaiah's craziness predictions, I don't even know if we can even get off the rails for this one, but we'll see. So Isaiah, I'll start with you, my friend. Who do you got winning the AFC South?
This is easy. Take it away, Trevor. I picked them last year to win it, and I'm standing by my take. They're the best team in that division by a long shot. Anthony Richardson, he's been balling out in camp. He looks all right, but I still don't trust him. The Texans, CJ Stroud needs time. The Texans, I feel like the Texans are definitely on the come up with DeMeco Ryans and Will Anderson and CJ Stroud, but not like you don't see these rookie led teams take that first year to the playoffs. Even Trevor Lawrence struggled. So I think that they have to adjust to the NFL and definitely learn it. So the Texans will definitely be the Texans. I could see them being in a battle for second with possibly Tennessee. And then Tennessee, I mean, you guys know my stance on Ryan Tannehill. I think that guy, you take away Derrick Henry, stack the box, make Ryan Tannehill beat you. He will be a turnover machine. And I honestly do not know why DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Tennessee Titans. It makes no damn sense whatsoever. So give me the Jags. The Jags, they made the playoffs last year. They won the division, and they got better with Calvin Ridley coming in now. He's going to be the number 1 in Jacksonville, and they made moves to fortify that defense. So Jaguars.
I'll go to you next, John. Who do you have?
Honestly, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think if you're in this division, the Texans finally did make a boneheaded move and got a franchise quarterback. But if you're the Colts, well, I think Richardson's making some impressive throws in training camp. That was also to his disarray in college at Florida, which what he had 3 to 4 picks in a game. But yeah, it's interesting there. But this is a division, to be honest, that doesn't have any star-studded receivers for the most part. Calvin Ridley's great,
could be,
but he can be right. But we don't know because he missed an entire year. Yeah, he's looking great in training camp, but he missed an entire year. So you don't have those bona fide receivers like we do in the AFC West or AFC North, et cetera, et cetera. I say Jaguars is their division to lose. They need to take that next step. You know what this team's about. So I think all eyes are going to be on them. So they can't just do what they did last year. They're going to have to start off headstrong. The Titans, though, are going to be the third worst team in the NFL, if not the second, because it's going to be Raiders third, Titans second. Because the Titans are passing around quarterbacks like Kim Kardashian and his boyfriends every 6 months. It's I'm hearing one report saying Will Levis is playing better than Malik Willis in training camp. Then I'm seeing another report that Malik Willis is outplaying Will Levis in training camp. And I'm like, first of all, you put mayo in your coffee. That should be automatic cut from the roster. So Ryan Tannehill's out. So that's a quarterback cluster turd all year long. And like people say, you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. It's the Jaguars division to lose. You got to take advantage of Tennessee switching at quarterbacks faster than Isaiah does his college football teams. And then I think the Texans and the other teams will come in later place. But like I said, it's the Jaguars division to lose, no doubt.
All right, I'll go next for this one. I got Jacksonville. I really like what they've been doing. Building up the overall team. Of course, getting the right coach for Trevor Lawrence with Doug Peterson. And now you obviously give him another offensive threat. Trevor Lawrence, I think last year worked enough well with the weapons that he had. Evan Ingram really blossomed into a tight end that really kind of got into his overall groove there with the fit. Let's see, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. But now you really add another threat, Calvin Ridley. And yes, obviously, like you mentioned, John, he hasn't been playing football for a full year. But when healthy, he is an explosive receiver. We saw specifically what he was able to do in Atlanta with Julio Jones for all those years. And he's really, really explosive. So, but even with that being said, with that Jacksonville team, really like that team as a whole, balanced. Defensively, I think there are some really good pieces there with Josh Allen. Yes, not the Josh Allen that we know offensively. He's the Josh Allen defensively. And then they also have defensively, too. I'm just trying to remember some guys. They got let's see here. Trayvon Walker. Some another guy there, too. Some of them are really good draft picks that they've really struck on as of late. So yeah, I have them at 1, Duval, as usual. And then let's see. I guess the Colts at 2. Richardson, I think, is going to be pretty good, I'd say, as a young kid. And then coaching wise, I really like that Shane Sturkin move for sure. And then I don't know. Houston and Tennessee, I feel like Tennessee is just kind of in that overall bind where, they could have moved on from Henry at some point. They really just don't know really who's throwing the football at this point in time. So, you look at it between those two teams. Yes, Vrabel's probably the better coach than DeMeco Ryans is, but the Houston Texans have their future quarterback with C.J. Stroud. So you can kind of look at it in both ways and be like, well, would you rather currently have the better quarterback or the better coach? And yes, obviously coaching is key, but I would take the better quarterback, at least in terms of my overall vision. So guys, I'm going to go Houston at 3rd because I think specifically the Titans really don't have much of a vision specific in terms of who their quarterback is right now. And yes, Vrabel's a great coach, but they're just kind of in a great crazy bind. So I'm going a little bold here. I'm going a little Isaiah here and going bold with this overall AFC South. And yes, I don't have anything crazy in terms of who wins this division, but I have the Tennessee Titans finishing in last place. Just because I just really don't think that they have their right quarterback situation right now. So that's what I have. I have Jacksonville at 1, Colts at 2, Houston at 3, and then Tennessee at 4. I will go to James. James, who's your AFC South pick?
Yeah, no doubt Jacksonville wins this division unless they have a tremendous collapse. And then if they do, some team that will be under 500 wins the division. We've seen that with the AFC South, or at least the madness that can be. My number 2, actually, I'm going to go one better than you, Ben. I think the Texans finished 2nd. I like what they did in the offseason. I really do. I don't know how good C.J. Stroud would be. I know he took that test in which he failed miserably with the IQ test and the game managing, but I hope that gets rectified in training camp, but we'll see.
Dropped him high.
And I do like the coach there, DeMeco Ryans. He is a former Texan player. And when you get a younger coach, I think that's good for all those young players. You really rally around that. And even though they won't be a winning ball club, I think they'll be better than everybody else in that division other from Jacksonville. So I'm going Houston 2nd. The Titans, I think they're good enough to finish third and not last, but I could see a scenario, where they do finish last. They trade Henry, for, fourth round or third round pick, whatever the case may be.
Eagles or Bills might be
Or
good.
so they can upstart that franchise. But man, when you think about it, they have 3 quarterbacks and none of them are any good. So that's really bad. The Colts are going to go through some growing pains. They're already going through one now with Jonathan Taylor, which we'll get on. Anthony Richardson, I know he's impressing at training camp, but then he's going to have to go into the rigor of the regular season and the NFL games. And I noticed at Florida, he kind of took some games off. So I'm worried about him at Florida. Or in the NFL. So I'm going to have the Colts last, Tennessee third, the Houston Texans second, and then the only winner in the division, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right. That was great and fun, guys. Love talking about those picks. Like I said, guys, NFC picks will be on Sunday's show. So, like I said, if you guys are on Sunday's show, we will talk about it then. If not, you guys can obviously send my picks to me, and I will pass that along on Sunday. Kruse also said about some things as well, too. The drama involving Jonathan Taylor should be interesting. We will actually get into that right now. So Jonathan Taylor, for those that don't know, he requested a trade last week, I believe. I'm not sure specifically on what day specifically, but this was a little bit of a surprise, but not in the same way because running backs have been pretty much pleading now at this point in time about at least top ones getting paid. And, so you're pretty much going to be seeing it left and right now. So because there's some top quarterbacks that are like, oh, I want to get paid. I feel like I'm better than another running back maybe in this league. Like Saquon, he got paid an extra year to be with the Giants. Obviously, after getting a franchise tag, at first he didn't get it. Then he got an extension. We'll see about Nick Chubb down the road here. I know that Tony Pollard's going to be on the franchise tag. So Jonathan Taylor, Jim Irsay, and him obviously had good talks. He probably won't be traded, but he requested out. And usually when you request out, the player itself usually gets the demand to be out. So my overall reactions is this is crazy. He actually, not this past year, was one of the best running backs, but the year before, I mean, he was essentially untouchable. I mean, that offensive line the Colts had was fantastic. And he essentially has some of the best breakaway speed. I loved him in college, too, at Wisconsin. But when he gets in that second level, he is absolutely filthy. So I think there could be some teams out there for his services, but time will tell specifically in terms of what the Colts will do there. I think that he should stay because for a young quarterback and Anthony Richardson, he needs to have that overall safety net, specifically to kind of help him along the way. You see a lot of young running quarterbacks, with somebody kind of right next to them that could help them, specifically as a running back. It just helps them overall with their confidence, their overall playing ability. So if they moved on from Taylor, I mean, that Colts team specifically in terms of my overall prediction, it could be a lot lower for sure because he is essentially the catalyst, the best player specifically on that offense. And you take him off, I mean, just completely drastically changes things for sure. So I'll start with Isaiah. What's your overall thoughts on the Jonathan Taylor trade request? Do you feel like there could be a move or something on the horizon down the road here? Or do you feel like he should just stay and really help Anthony Richardson blossom into a young quarterback?
Well, I think the Colts would be foolish to let him go, right? Because like you mentioned, they need that safety net for Anthony Richardson. Because when you're a rookie, you are trying to adjust to the NFL, and you need that safety net so you don't have to just throw like 50 passes every single game. And that's not a recipe for success for you to transition in your rookie year. So I think that for the Colts, they'd be foolish to let him leave. But here's the thing about the Jonathan Taylor situation. Like I told James, I think on Sports Weekly last week when we did that emergency edition, I think this is the start of a really ugly situation because Jim Irsay basically told Jonathan, or he basically said some comments saying like, hey, all these players looking for new contracts when they're already under contract. They should basically suck it up and just play. If they don't want to play, then okay, fine. We'll just have the next guy up and just replace them like that. It was like a slave owner mentality, and and I think that Jonathan Taylor saw that and he didn't really take it too kindly because literally at the day after Jim Irsay made those comments, you saw he requested a trade, and then you saw the reports. So Jonathan Taylor requests a trade. Then the next day, the Colts are thinking about putting Jonathan Taylor on the NLI list, which would basically, because I guess he had like a back injury. They thought he had a back injury from non-football activities, and they're going to put him on that list, which means Jonathan Taylor would have to sit out the season and not get paid because the injury that he suffered was not from like football activities. And then Jonathan Taylor came out and said, I don't have any back injury whatsoever, and the team is just playing stupid games. So I think this is just the beginning of an ugly situation, and I think it could definitely end up in like lawsuits and stuff like that. The Colts trying not to pay Taylor by saying he's got some injury. Jim Irsay making those comments. Jonathan Taylor saying I didn't suffer the injuries and requesting a trade. It's the beginning of an ugly situation, and it's a situation that you definitely don't want because for the Colts you need Taylor. And if Jim Irsay just shut his mouth and not said what he did say, I think you could definitely get back from this situation and mend the fences. But I think honestly now you're at a point of no return. I mean, Jim Irsay said what he said, and I don't think that Jonathan Taylor getting a new contract he would want to play for that type of owner with that kind of slave owner mentality. Ben, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that, guys. I agree with Isaiah for sure. Obviously there's just a lot of the backstory specifically, and it'd be crazy, if they put him on that overall list, because obviously, he wants to get paid specifically, but obviously he has to show up. Obviously that's the biggest thing about being an athlete is you got to show up. If you want to get paid, you got to show up and do the overall work. So, James, what's your overall thoughts about this Jonathan Taylor trade request? It just feels like specifically that there's a lot to this for sure.
Yeah, definitely since last weekend when this news came out, it's been – I'll tell you what, both sides have had their problems in this, right? With the injury caused by Taylor and then the way the Colts have handled it. And definitely Irsay has a lot to be blamed about this. But there's a report that came out today mentioning with the Colts saying hopefully things settle down after the tumultuous week. And then they hope they could keep him long-term somehow. I don't know where this is coming from, but there's a report out there saying that from the Colts. They want him to keep him in the circle for a long time. And even though, that ugliness happened, they want him to come back. They want him to be here long-term or there long-term. Again, both sides are admittedly at fault for allowing the contract status to go so public and personal at this point when I think about it. And Irsay or Isaiah mentioned it. Yeah, it should just stay quiet with this. And at both sides, honestly, should just stay quiet off of this. But, man, I don't know how this is going to end up. Lots of things with the running backs don't end up well when they're fighting with their team. Personally, I have this with Josh Jacobs with the Raiders. So right now, I mean, that's not as bad as this situation because there's a potential injury with this. But the Colts did get Kenyon Drake. They signed him, the former Raider, just in case this lingers into the regular season. But I hope the situation ends up being where, hey, he's there week one and somehow he has a long contract signed. But the statements again by Irsay, what Isaiah mentioned, that's going to not only take Taylor and his agent out of the fold of ever playing for the Colts again, but future players to say, hey, I don't want to play for the Colts. That owner said something so bad, especially when it's like what Isaiah said with slave mentality. I don't want to play for him, and he has a bad track record, and his father has a bad track record of things said or actions done on and off the field. So it's really bad, honestly. But we'll see what happens.
All right. With that being said, guys, I know we're gonna probably quickly finish off with some college football stuff, but we can obviously kind of have that kind of as our quick final thoughts if you guys want to have some of that stuff specifically, because I know we're kind of getting quite late. I do obviously appreciate you guys joining us as always for the show for tonight. We got through quite a bit of stuff, obviously football and baseball related. In terms of college football stuff, in terms of that realignment. Obviously, there's a lot to that. A lot of transition, from Big 10, Big 12, college football, guys, and we'll talk more about this. I'm pretty sure, Isaiah, there's a college football show or something that we're doing coming up. So, obviously, if you want to pass along that, by all means, you can say that as well. But, yeah, the season for college football, go Buckeyes, by the way, Steven, if you're listening. Shout out Buckeye Nation. But, yeah, it's going to be a really good season for sure, in terms of college football itself. And then we'll talk more about it the next couple of weeks for sure, too. But, yeah, the realignment, man, it's crazy. There's just a lot going on there. And, we'll kind of see specific in terms of there's more teams that have been added because I've been seeing more reports day by day. Arizona the other day. I think Oregon or something like that. I've been seeing all these teams here. Washington, yep. So, I mean, it feels like a different story every single day. So, we're just kind of getting that peak point of the season now where a lot of the football stuff is really coming out. So it's a great time of the year for sure. So, like I said, guys, appreciate you guys having me or coming on as usual. And I'll take it to you guys for your final thoughts. So I'll start with, Isaiah.
Yeah, my final thoughts. I know James has a lot to say on this topic, so I'm gonna keep my statement short or try to. It was a great show. Thanks to Christy. Thanks to John for hopping on with us. Thanks to Christy for commenting. Thank you so much, Christy, for watching as well. But yeah, my thoughts on the realignment stuff is. First off, it's the death of the Pac-12. The Pac-12 officially took its last breath today at 1 p.m. Pacific time. 100 years of glorious history, all gone, just like that. And I don't think the Pac-12 will be a conference anymore because you can't have a conference with just 4 teams, right? You can't. There's no way. So it's sad because I did work some Pac-12 championship games back when I was working for the Niners, and it was just a fun league, fun games to watch, a lot of scoring, a lot of fun in that league. So I'm definitely going to miss it. But, I think this all started when Oklahoma and Texas moved to the SEC, that college football, college sports, as we know of it and love it, it's just never going to be the same. And now you have all these conferences making moves. The Pac-12 is dead. You have the Big Ten getting like Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, in addition, and then the Big 12 getting like Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona, Utah to join them. I mean, it's going to be crazy. And I think the SEC shouldn't be counted out on making any more moves because there's talks that Florida State could do something, leave the ACC. Clemson could leave the ACC. I mean, Ben and James, imagine if Clemson and Florida State joins the SEC with Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Texas. I mean, it would be unfair. And I expect them to do that because, it's an arms race right now. It's like the Rangers and the Astros. It's like an arms race right now. One conference does this, another conference has to counter, and then another conference has to counter. So, college sports, as we know of it and love it, it's just not going to be the same. The only thing I do like from this move is that with Oregon and Washington and USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, it does give the Big Ten a lot of parity. Used to it was always Ohio State, running through everybody, Michigan running through everybody. But now you can't count out USC. You can't count out UCLA. They're on the come up. Oregon is always in contention. They're playing, they always play Big Ten football in the Pac-12. Washington's on the come up. Like, there's going to be more competition. And it's like Alabama and the SEC, where the SEC's closing in on them, and Oklahoma and Texas is just going to make it more competitive. And same with the Big Ten. Ohio State, Michigan, I think their level of dominance is not going to be as big as we have seen it before, and same with Alabama as well. So I just think that all this, like Christy said, all this realignment talk, you're going to see more of that come up, but college sports, as we know of it, it's not going to be the same anymore. And a lot of these rivalry games, sadly, will be lost because of it. And now you're going to have only like 2 or 3 major conferences in college football, college basketball, and it's just going to be like that. So that's our new reality now in college sports. And the last thing I'll say before I turn into James is I honestly think the Oregon Ducks, who I'm repping right now, I think the Oregon Ducks are absolute idiots for going to the Big Ten. Because why? Like, I understand why USC and UCLA went there, because they want to be the kings of the West Coast. They want to take all the recruits and just show the recruits, hey, guess what? We play in the Big Ten, much better than the Pac-12. You should come to USC because of that. Well, if I'm Oregon, I would not have gone to the Big Ten and tried to be in the same conference with USC and UCLA and Washington. You know what I would have done? And call me crazy, Ben and James. I would have gone to the SEC. That's what I would have done if I'm Oregon. Because if Oregon had went to the SEC, they would have been the kings of the West, because they would have been able to tell people, hey, guess what? Come to Oregon. You know why? Because we have these shiny new helmets. We got one of the best mascots in all of college sports. We have all these shiny new uniforms, facilities, all that stuff. Plus, we play in the SEC, one of the best conferences in all of college sports. You get to go against Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, and Texas all the time. Like, Oregon could have flexed its muscles and truly became the king of the West Coast if they had done it. So I honestly disagree with Oregon's decision to go to the Big Ten. I think if they really wanted to be the kings of the West and the rulers of the West, they should have gone to the SEC. I think that would have been just an absolute great decision, not only for the Ducks, but also for the SEC as well.
And then you, James?
All right, so check me out, of course, at Halos in the Infield and The Chair with James Gonzalez on YouTube. My final thoughts about this college football realignment. And I've said this, I think, every offseason since I've been on so many networks and shows around Isaiah, Christie, among others. It's just a money grab, and it's musical chairs every offseason. And right now, it's to the point where there's only, 2 super conferences, or they're going to be 2 super conferences than everybody else, basically. And that ruins what was the Pac-10, I'd even like when Utah and Colorado came into the Pac-12. I felt that ruined the Pac-10 in that way, just because that's what I grew up with in LA. So I never liked that move, but I don't have to worry about that now, because the whole Pac-12, 10, 7-4, it's all gone. And it's kind of sad, but when you think about it, changes happen like that. The issue that I have, though, now, the 4 remaining schools, like Isaiah mentioned, California, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State, will try to figure out where they're going to go or get with the Mountain West. It's just an odd time right now, and the Conference of Champions is pretty much dead. The Pac-12, it's just done. And I know that they wanted to make a deal with Apple TV, but I can't see that happening now. There's just no way you're going to get people to watch the schools I mentioned, among others, that nobody really watches for football or basketball. So it's change. We have to get used to it. And then we also have to scramble to find our games now on television. I know the Big 12 or the Big 10, which is going to be 18, the Big 18. who knows? It might be 20 in a year, but the Big 18 will be on 3 different networks. So look out for that. And then whatever the SEC grows into, coming from the ACC schools that want to leave, it's just going to be madness, honestly. And everything that we knew is pretty much gone out here. And it's really sad because, again, I grew up with it, but we'll see what comes out of it. I know money is the big issue why it happened. And for about a couple of hours on my way to the Angel game from San Diego here, or North San Diego, my friend had coverage on it all drive long. So my head was getting so dizzy from all the possibilities that if they stay in the Pac-12, this could happen. But if they go to the Big Ten, this could happen. And all the different revenue and situation like that. And government and politics comes into it as well. But I just wonder what's going to happen after all this. When all these teams figure out, colleges, universities, when they figure out how much of a cluster it is in the two superpower conferences, are they going to want to break out and, have their own conference, the ones that aren't making it? The ones that aren't good enough, are they going to try to have their own conference after some years that the better schools are winning? Ben, I think this reminds me too of the Big East. You remember the NBA, or excuse me, the college basketball schools that they had back in the 70s and then the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. How great that was, the Big East. I mean, when you thought about, they had, Syracuse, Georgetown, Boston College, Rutgers, UConn, of course. You had all that going well for those many years. And then football came in to blow it up, basically. And now it's all a mess. And everything is a mess in the college sports world when it comes to realignment. And I hate it so much. So we hold on to the good times and the memories, but we know that a cluster is bound to happen after the season coming up.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy to kind of see, if there's any other colleges that follow suit with this, because it just feels like on a day by day, just feels like it just adds more and more and more for sure. So, all right, guys. Well, like I said, great show, and definitely thanks again for coming on. Just about 3 hours, so obviously we did pretty well, but we'll let you guys get going to sleep, and obviously myself definitely. Hopefully, you guys have a great weekend. Like I said, Sunday night we'll be back. I know that obviously I don't know if both of you guys will be on. If not, no worries. But James, looks like James will have it as well. We might have John come back. We'll see about that. Looks like we might have him as well, but we'll see. And then, as there's any other shows that you want to also announce, by all means, feel free to, before we put our outro on to conclude tonight's show.
Yeah, so I think the shows that we are going to be doing, I know Laurel told me that Extra Point won't return until September 4th. That's when we do our first week one preview show and pick 'em, and I think we might do a little bit of a review of our picks for the playoffs, and we probably will drop our Super Bowl pick. I know we might do some award predictions as well for that show, so tune in for that. We will be doing a college football preview show for the season. I know this is probably the last great season of college football before, like James mentioned, all the cluster crap happens. So that's going to happen like the last week of August. Don't know the date yet, but tune in for that. And Sports Weekly may return sometime this upcoming week. We'll see. It depends on my schedule, because I know I'm working from 7:30 p.m. to 11:30, so it's an absolute mess of a schedule. But tune in. We may be having some shows this upcoming week. But yeah, we got the massive college football preview show that's going to be coming up in the last week of August before the week one of the season kicks off.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, thank you guys for joining Kicking with Kruse as always. Christy, appreciate it. Everybody else. Sunday night, we'll be back at it. Make sure you guys to tune in. But with that being said, Thank you guys. This is Ben Kruse alongside Isaiah Leon, James Gonzalez. Thank you guys for listening to Kicking with Kruse as always. And we'll see you guys on Sunday night. Have a good weekend, guys.
Oh my God! Big goal to go from the two. Toss sweep one for James White. Cuts it up to the right arm. Cuts it upfield. Driving forward. Diving to the goal line. A touchdown! And a title for the Patriots! I can't believe it! Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler.
45 remaining. Tatum drives down and throws it down. Bases loaded. 2 out. Hard hit into right. Back at the wall. Tie game. Big Poppy.
No icing. For the first time in 39 years, the Boston Bruins have won the Stanley Cup.
Anything possible.